In a future ruled by magic, he's a nobody with his sword, powerless, forgotten, discarded. Until one day, he gets a letter from the future, you won't believe it, from himself. It was a warning of his fall, and a key to change everything. Now he doesn't just learn magic, he bends time and carves space. Can the weakest student defy fate and master time itself? Let's find out. The story of the main character Kujo Haruto begins in Tokyo, and more specifically, in an academy for adventurers. His day did not start off well. He immediately got hit in the face with a fireball and rolled on the ground, and his bullies came up to him with mockery and said that they did not notice him, but they did not believe that he was actually knocked out by the simplest spell. He is simply incredible. MC got up and asked, "Is this not enough?" He promised that he would give it to him. He bought what he asked for. The bully smiled and showed him a bag of food and said that it was a fresh beef burger. The cafeteria only sells 50 pieces a day. He bought it, but where are the drinks? He could take care of that too, so he will punish him once again. He threw a fireball at him with all his might, which knocked him down again, and the guy laughed, saying that as he thought, he really is weak. A girl named Shinomone Rin from the disciplinary committee appeared, Haruto's main protector, and also his childhood friend. She asked him discontentedly what they were doing here, and they immediately decided to run away so as not to get a reprimand. The bully threw the MC's phone in his face and told him to be glad that they were done for today, after which, it fell and broke. Rin immediately ran up to him and worriedly asked if he was okay. He told her to stop. She would also be bullied if she talked to him. But she didn't really care, and she said so directly. And he, wiping the blood from his face, said that they would not survive here if they talked like they did in childhood. So he decided to push her away and left, and she could only watch him go. When he entered the academy, everyone started whispering. After all, he is that special recruitment student who is completely devoid of magic. But how did he get into such a prestigious school? They say there was a mistake in the grading system. Maybe someone else took the exam for him. He didn't like these rumors, but he endured them. As much as he didn't want to admit it, he couldn't deny the rumors. How did a student who did so poorly get into a prestigious school? One day, his parents told him that he would be a special intake student. Even if he wanted to ask them the reason, it would be too late. He looked at the sky outside the window and thought that maybe he was supposed to die with them that day. He was accepted into the school without any magical abilities, so he only had one way to successfully complete his studies, to become a swordsman. Now, when magic dominates society, his useless skills can only be useful in close combat. Being the only survivor of his family and a burden on all missions, he earned the nickname, the Plague God. After school, he returned home. When he closed the front door, he noticed a black envelope. He took it and sat on the couch to take a closer look. The envelope had no stamps and no sender's name. He swallowed nervously and decided to open it, and as soon as part of the letter appeared in front of his eyes, he was blinded by a bright light coming from it. The light began to intensify and swirl like a whirlpool, and then there was a short flash and the letter fell on the couch. But Haruto was no longer there. He found himself in another space. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw many stars and water. There was a splash behind him, and someone's silhouette appeared, who said with a smile that it must be 2054 on the Western calendar. And he is 16-year-old Haruto, right? He confirmed it in confusion, and the stranger told him to listen to him carefully. His name is Haruto. He is a he from the future. He sent him this letter from the future. In 10 years, he will become a mage who can control time and space. However, this will not be soon. So he decided to teach him now. He will become the greatest magician. He knows that he is a skeptic because they are the same person. Well, it is better for him to see once than to hear. So let him do what he says. Let him enter the Frank dungeon, the Shinjuku Imperial Garden, alone. He will contact him after that. Soon, he was already in the dungeon, and as he walked along the dark corridor, he said that there was nothing useful in the cleared dungeons. He looked at the letter and asked if this was some kind of joke. He understands what will happen, right? He confirmed it and said that he can at least burn this letter, after which he told him where to go. He followed his instructions and eventually ran into a wall. He said that this was a dead end, and asked if he could burn it now. He asked him to put the letter in a crack in the wall, and he, with a heavy sigh, stuck it between the stonework, after which a bright stripe passed along the wall. The walls moved apart, revealing a passage for him, and he became nervous, having never heard of a hidden route before. When he entered the secret room, he was blinded by a bright light, and once his eyes adjusted, he saw a huge crystal at the other end of the hall. Future Haruto said that it was a skill stone. This was his first time seeing something like this, right? Let him touch it and gain a new skill. Gathering his thoughts, he confidently approached the crystal and touched it, and then Future MC apologized to him. It turns out that he had deceived him. After his touch, the crystal cracked and glowed bright red, after which the entire room began to transform. A grinding sound was heard above. A hole appeared in the ceiling, from which the core fell. It began to collect stone fragments around itself, forming a head. And then brick by brick, it dismantled the walls to create the entire body. As the walls were collapsing, the room was filled with dust, and MC could only watch the silhouette gradually changing inside this gray cloud. He became very nervous, and when the body formation was finished, the cube acting as a head lit up, and the stone creature dispersed all the dust, getting closer to Haruto. He straightened up to his full height, and then MC realized that now there was a golem in front of him. Before he could do anything, something hit his face and he was thrown back at high speed. He hit his head on the wall until it bled. He didn't even understand what just happened. The golem hit him with its fist, and he didn't even manage to react, and now he was sitting by the wall, bleeding, and wondering if he was tricked. He felt his whole body start to burn, and he also felt like he was losing consciousness. His eyes slowly began to close, and he, looking at the photo on the screen of the phone that turned on from such a blow, turned to his parents and younger sister named Ria and told them that he would finally see them. Haruto from the future asked if he was okay. When he didn't receive an answer, he called him by name and said that he was failing at school, and besides, he was going to die soon. A meaningless death from excessive gullibility. Is he okay with this? He immediately opened his eyes and thought that this was a terrible life in which there was nothing good. This is just his life. He convinced himself that he could not do anything about it. He gave up, but of course he was not okay with it. He told his future self so, and he ordered him to resist, survive, and change his life. Noticing that he was starting to rise, the stone golem prepared for an attack and raised his hand, then clenched it into a fist and struck, after which blood spurted and a loud scream was heard. Everything went dark before his eyes, and he quietly told the enemy not to mess with him in such a place. A bright light flashed, and the system was activated. It announced the availability of a hidden quest called Time and Space Mage, Unwavering Spirit. Since he met the requirements, the quest was launched, his death was cancelled. His physical body returned to its previous state. The crystal lit up and cracked. He opened his eyes and thought that he would definitely survive, after which a bright beam of light shot up and he easily rose to his feet, and his whole body was enveloped in sparks and system interference. It informed him that he had acquired space-time magic. In addition, he acquired acceleration, physical rewind, and stop chain, as well as the passive skill of the space and time mage. Now he is level 1. He has just revealed his potential and received a plus of 30% to the characteristics. He looked at his sparkling hands in shock and asked, "What is this?" Future Haruto said that in order to speed up his awakening, he had to take a risk. He apologized to him for telling him about it in advance. Actually, space-time magic will only be discovered after 10 years. Only he was able to complete this hidden quest. He asked in confusion, so he was really from the future? He ignored his question and told him to get ready. The training was about to begin. A stone golem approached him from behind, and he, noticing this, immediately turned around and jumped to the side an instant before the impact. He was surprised that the jump was so easy for him, as if his body had lost weight. Could it be because of the passive skill? Future Haruto said that he would teach him how to use his magic. Let him listen to him carefully. He did not need to look to see. He needed to feel the flow of time that rules the world. He frowned, thinking about it, and he said that he would succeed. After all, they are the same person. His words gave the current Haruto confidence, and he froze in place. Ignoring the approaching enemy, he closed his eyes and concentrated, trying to feel the flow of time in the entire world. By this time, the golem had already landed in front of him, clenched his hand into a fist, and swung. When his hand was already very close, he opened his eyes and sparks flew in all directions. He looked at his opponent, following his movements, and then jumped again and avoided the blow. He smiled and activated space-time magic and climbed onto his opponent's arm. Activating acceleration, he rushed up his opponent's arm and then jumped up and raised his sword above his head, aiming for his head. He struck, driving the sword deeper into the stone and reached the core inside it. After that, the crystals on the outside glowed and cracked, and the golem's body began to crumble. He quickly jumped down and swung his blade, after which his opponent was completely destroyed, and the system reported that his level had increased by 4, his swordsmanship had increased by 8, and he had also received 45,800 reputation points. He looked at the notifications and future Haruto asked, does he believe him now? He nervously clutched the sword and hesitantly confirmed this, after which he informed him of the next step. Now he needs to leave the dungeon and take a short detour. They are going to the place where Rin will be killed by the monster. As soon as he said this, MC immediately stopped and asked in shock what he said. He said that he heard everything clearly. He is talking about his childhood friend. D-rank dungeon, Ikebukuro. Rin will enter the dungeon with her friends and will be killed by the extra boss. Let him save her and change the future, because he is now a mage of space and time. After his words, he immediately ran into this dungeon. While he was fighting with the golem, it had already gotten dark, and now he was running along an empty street. He from the future said that on May 23rd, 2054, in the very wilds of Ikebukuro, due to the unexpected appearance of a special monster, she will be killed. Despite the fact that her teammates used healing magic, there was no one else nearby, and the entire team was completely destroyed. All this, of course, is not her fault, but unable to listen to him anymore, MC ordered him to shut up, and when he was already very close to the dungeon, he asked why he did not tell him about this before. He asked in response, did not he want to remain a loner, because everyone he communicates with is waiting for trouble? And for the same reason, he did not really care that everyone avoids him. And yet, why is he so worried about others? Meanwhile, MC encountered a goblin, and not just one. Several more came up behind him. While he was fighting them, Haruto from the future called him a plague god and told him not to pretend that he had an epiphany. This world can be changed with his help. After cutting down the monsters, he ordered him to shut up and said that he will do whatever he wants. He responded with a grin and said that he expected such words. He will teach him how to use his magic. Meanwhile, on the lowest floor of the dungeon, a fight was going on. An explosion was heard. Rin could not withstand such an attack and she was thrown to the side. She fell to the floor with a crash, and her team members called out to her worriedly. Wincing in pain, she slightly opened her eyes and looked at the enemy. It turned out to be a C-rank extra boss, a Dark Guardian. The guy nervously clenched his teeth and exclaimed that he was not informed about him at all. His comrades said that she couldn't do anything. He wasn't reacting to the barriers. One of them stepped forward and told them to calm down. They had a chance to win if they all attacked him together. The frightened boy objected because he didn't believe in this idea and didn't want to die. And at that moment, the Dark Guard raised his sword high and swung it, inflicting heavy wounds on them. By this time, Rin had recovered. She stood up and looked at her comrades, but none of them were moving much. Her wounded friend reached out to her and asked her for help. And then she, having gained strength, stood up and took her staff, and then attacked the Dark Guard. A fireball flew into the place where the head should be, but since there was just blue flame burning there instead, this attack did not cause him any damage at all. Realizing this, Rin was horrified, and when he raised the sword above his head, she screamed loudly in fear. The Dark Guard attacked, and she closed her eyes, screaming for help, and then MC appeared in front of her. He used the stop chain, and thus held the monster's sword in place. He asked if she was okay, and she, opening her eyes, looked at him in shock, without answering. He told her to step aside and turn to the enemy, after which he took out his weapon and jumped to the side, and the Dark Guard hit the place where he had just been. He landed not far from the monster, and then rushed towards him and blocked his blow. Finding a gap between the armor through which flames were breaking through, he realized that this was his weak spot and wanted to strike, but his sword bounced off the armor. He continued to strike, trying to get into the gap, and at one point blocked a counterattack. Sparks arose due to the pressure. As a result, his sword could not withstand it and cracked, and then completely broke. The Dark Guardian's head burst into purple flames, and he realized that things were bad. After that, dark energy began to gather in the eye hole. It fired a powerful beam towards Haruto, and he managed to dodge it using acceleration. Having moved behind the enemy, he analyzed the situation. His sword cannot penetrate his armor, but it deals damage to exposed parts of the body, critical points. He needs to focus on his head. The Dark Guardian turned around, and at that moment he rushed to attack, and Haruto from the future warned him that his sword would then completely break. He answered him that he knew this, and used the physical rewind skill. Thus, he rewound the sword's time to the moment when it was still intact, and lunged forward. Energy was gathering in the monster's helmet, but he plunged the just restored tip of the sword into the eye slit, which was critical damage for the Dark Guardian. The flame in his helmet went out in an instant, and as his body disappeared into the flames, he landed next to the girl, and future Haruto noted that it seemed like he had changed fate itself. Surprised by her friend's abilities, she called out to him in confusion, and as soon as help arrived in the dungeon, she approached him, demanding an explanation. She realized that it would be more correct to thank him first, and thanked him for saving her and her friends. He scratched his head awkwardly and said it was nothing, after which she asked what kind of power was that. He looked away, choosing his words, and remembered the warning from his future self. He needed to try not to change time too much, and not spread about this magic. He looked at the girl, who was still waiting for his explanation, and with a serious look asked if she could keep everything he said a secret. She leaned forward with interest, and he said that there was so much going on. He didn't want to stand out. Teacher Haruto praised him, saying that everything was right. Let him lie to her about something. Rin heard some sounds and asked, did he say something? He got really nervous and told her that he didn't understand what she was talking about at all, then thought about the envelope and swore to kill him. Finally, he thought of something to tell her. He wanted to try out a new sword skill that he had been training for a long time, but he was still far from perfect, so he wanted to keep it a secret. He folded his hands in prayer and asked the girl not to tell anyone about this, and for some reason she became embarrassed and asked, that is, will this be their secret? He looked at her with confusion and confirmed it, after which she smirked and said that she understood everything. If that was the case, then everything would remain between them. He breathed a sigh of relief, glad that she actually believed in it, and soon he returned to his routine. That was how Rin's death was prevented, and at the same time, he gained immense power. He can't change the past, but he can change the future now. The lesson ended, and as soon as he got up from his seat, he heard bullies calling him from the side to mock him again. They went to a secluded place, and one of them said that he heard that he was in the Ikebukuro dungeon yesterday. One guy said that he just ran away from there when he realized that he was unable to do anything. Moreover, they seemed to have encountered an extra boss and defeated him. But they didn't expect anything from him. MC frowned at them and thought, was there some witness? The bully said with a smile that his friend was there. Now he is in the hospital. He has a serious injury, and treatment is not cheap these days. He understands what he's saying, right? He gets the money, and they get the silence. He kept silent, and the hooligans, not waiting for an answer, started getting angry. One of them lit a flame in his hand and asked, does he want to become their punching bag again? Unexpectedly for them, the MC said that was enough. They looked at him in bewilderment and asked, what did he say? He looked at them angrily and repeated it, asking, are they deaf? Of course. The words of some ragamuffin they constantly bullied hurt them and they pounced on him. But thanks to the increase in all indicators, he could now clearly see all their movements. Before their fists had time to approach his face, he flashed between them with lightning speed and struck back. After which, they all fell. They did not understand what just happened, and Haruto told them not to come closer to him anymore. Otherwise, this would happen. He showed them the things he managed to pull out of their pockets, and they indignantly exclaimed for him to give it to them. He lit a lighter, and threateningly approached them, and said that they must promise this to each other. What would they say to that? They could only agree, and he realized that now they would not bother him anymore. He decided to return to the classroom, and while he was listening to the lecture, he thought, the next lesson is measuring magical abilities, right? The teacher suggested that they begin the lesson, and called out to Haruto. He immediately stood up from his seat, and thought that his magical abilities were almost at zero, but maybe something changed when he became a space and time mage. As an experiment, he will try to use some magic. He went to the teacher's desk and reached out to the magic meter in the form of a mirror, after which he used his magic and his eyes sparkled. The mirror reflected this shine and the teacher, looking at it, was very surprised. Due to the excess of magical power, the mirror exploded, from which the teacher fell to the floor in fright, and everyone else was very surprised. MC awkwardly scratched the back of his head, realizing that he went too far. Now everyone is looking at him. Only Rin quietly giggled. When classes were over, he left the school and everyone, of course, began to discuss what happened in that lesson. They were impressed and even thought that he was ranked higher than A, and his magic was generally some kind of unknown. Hearing the whisper, he thought that this time the gossip was the complete opposite of what he had heard before. This irritated him even more. Someone called him, distracting him from his thoughts. He quickly looked around in search of the owner of the voice, and then someone in the bushes said that he was here. He looked closely, and then someone small jumped out of the bushes, which surprised MC very much. In front of him now stood a small pink plush hedgehog, and he recognized its voice. He exclaimed in shock, is he the Haruto from the letter? Why does he look like this? Since Haruto from the future is now a pink hedgehog, then his name will be appropriate, Pinky. He proudly answered him that this is a type of space-time magic. It possessed his soft toy. He asked him in confusion to wait and asked, he doesn't think he understood everything, does he? Haruto from the future got tired of explaining everything to him and said that the matter is urgent, now is not the time to relax. The Chaos Dragon appeared, and much earlier than in the future he knows about. A wind rose around, foreshadowing danger, and Pinky said that things were bad. He destroyed the guild in the Ariake area, took many lives, and caused an unprecedented disaster. He is classified as an alpha-type monster. At least, that was the case in his future. But he appeared earlier, and they must destroy him at all costs. Otherwise, an unprecedented disaster will happen again, like in his future. MC got worried and said that then they should contact the guild and request an extermination team. With a team of high-ranking mages, he is sure they can defeat him. Feeling something, Pinky turned around and said that it was too late. They were covered by someone's huge shadow, and Haruto looked up at the sky and was horrified. The Chaos Dragon was already here, and for now he was just looking at them. They backed away in fear and exclaimed, shouldn't he be in some dungeon? Pinky told him that it was a fierce, migratory species. It would not stay in one place. The dragon's next actions confirmed his words. He decided not to waste his energy on them, and flew to the place where there were most people. MC turned around and said with concern in his voice that if this continued, the students might get hurt. Meanwhile, the crowd of students happily walked home, unaware of anything. When a large shadow covered them, they looked up to the sky and were terrified, not understanding why some monster was here at all. The Chaos Dragon noticed them and glared at them, after which they ran away in panic with loud screams. Only the defenders of the student committee came out to fight back the dragon. The head of the committee ordered everyone to prepare for battle, and those who do not own magic should run to the dorm. The four magicians took out their staffs and Haruto headed towards them, since the main battle would now take place there. The defenders activated their magic circles and began firing at the dragon from all sides. Their leader raised her staff and said that they could not let him near the school under any circumstances. After which, a huge magic circle appeared over the dragon, and it was blinded by a bright glow. And then, there was an explosion, and the monster was engulfed in a cloud of smoke. For some reason, they thought that the dragon was dead and began to praise the head of the committee, who was smiling smugly at that time. But what was their surprise when they saw that the dragon was not dead, and there was not even a single scratch on it, despite the fact that they used Dragon Slayer magic. Since they really angered the dragon with their incomprehensible confidence in victory, he gathered a clod of energy in his mouth, and then fired it at them, and they were blown away by a bright beam of light. There was a loud explosion, and as soon as everything died down, MC saw that the defenders from the student committee were lying unconscious. He was surprised that they were instantly defeated, but Pinky said that it was not surprising, they were just schoolchildren. And he was right. Only Haruto exclaimed with displeasure that now is not the time for such comments. Then Pinky seriously said his name and splashed his face with some pink liquid. MC was confused by his actions, and then he explained to him that this dragon incense, a smell that attracts dragons. The Chaos Dragon is incredibly fierce, but not very smart. Accordingly, now it will only target him, so he must defeat him. At that moment, the enemy opened his mouth wide and rushed towards him, and Pinky told him to show him the power of his magic. Noticing that he was flying here, he advised him to run, and Haruto turned around sharply, and at that moment, Rin's voice was heard, asking if she was okay. He turned around and saw her helping her friend get up, and Pinky asked, "He doesn't want to drag her into all this, does he?" He confirmed it, and he ordered him to run, adding in his mind that this way they can avoid prying eyes. He used the acceleration and took the dragon away from the school. Soon they arrived at an abandoned train station, a perfect place for a fight. They noticeably moved away from the dragon, and while he was catching up with them, they decided to take a break. MC began to ask him what kind of monster it was in general, and he told him that his essence is a dark element. A collision with his flame promises instant death, and the fumes around him have a delayed debuff effect. He is resistant to physical attacks, they do not cause him any damage. He asked, so he is a terrible monster that appeared 5 years earlier? Pinky confirmed it and added that he is still small and not very smart. Thanks to this, he is easily lured by smell. There's a reason it costs 500,000 credits. Haruto immediately turned to him and asked what that meant. He told him it was the price of the incense. He took the money from his account. He immediately grabbed it and exclaimed in displeasure, what the hell was he doing? How did he know his password? In response to this, Pinky only smiled, and he, realizing that they were the same person, only cursed quietly. Future Haruto told him not to worry, he would quickly return what he had spent. After all, if they defeated him, the reward would be huge. That's not all. The money was just the icing on the cake. With the skill cube from this monster, he would be able to get a new magic skill. They need to solve problems as they come. The Chaos Dragon is far from an adult, and its weak point, the heart, is extremely vulnerable. He wanted to tell him where it was, but at that moment, the dragon arrived. He immediately spewed purple flames from his mouth, but fortunately MC managed to jump aside in time. While the dragon was preparing for the next attack, he pulled out his sword, and then several pillars of flame fell on him. Running in zigzags, he successfully avoided the blows and increased the distance between them. He suddenly braked and turned around, and then Pinky decided to move to a safer place and jumped off his shoulder. Immediately after that, Haruto's eyes widened in fear. A stream of purple flames was heading straight for him, and then an explosion occurred. The fire went out and only smoke remained in its place, which limited the dragon's visibility. Then someone jumped out of the dark cloud, leaving a sparkling trail behind them which surprised the monster. MC, quickly heading towards him, said that it was just him 0.5 seconds ago. Pinky was surprised and thought, did he really just come up with a practical application of space and time magic to avoid an attack? He had caught up with the dragon's chest in the meantime and, looking at the purple crystal in the middle, realized that it was the same heart. Swinging, he rushed into the attack with a loud cry and struck, but how easily his sword passed through the body surprised him. He did not feel any resistance at all. After that, the dragon's heart began to emit energy from itself, and his body became intangible, simply dissolving into steam. Flying through the black and purple clouds, Haruto was very surprised and, watching the dragon disappear, told Pinky that he had not told him about such an ability. He landed nearby, and Pinky said that he could turn his body into steam, so let him be more careful. MC sighed tiredly and asked him to warn about this in advance next time, and then he remembered that he forgot to say something else. The reverse process is possible when steam turns into small dragons, which are called legion. And so it happened. The dragon roared, and small dragons appeared from the steam. Haruto became noticeably nervous, and noted that he had said that it was just a cub. He said that it was not so easy to deal with him. Initially, he was supposed to be a strong opponent, but only in 5 years. Perhaps, with his actions, he had already managed to change the future, and that is why he appeared here now. So let him answer for his actions and defeat him. He sighed tiredly and asked, so it was all his fault? At that very moment, one of the little dragons flew up to him and wanted to grab him with its paw, but he took advantage of the acceleration in time and jumped back. The dragon rushed after him, and he, waving his blade, dealt with the enemy, and his body disappeared. He was glad and thought that it seemed that the small dragons did not evaporate when he attacked them. Pinky advised him to fight them off and look for an opportunity to attack the dragon. The small lizards surrounded him from all sides, and he exclaimed that he himself knew what to do. after which he took a more comfortable stance, and choosing the right moment, took advantage of the acceleration and rushed forward, cutting all the monsters in his path with quick swings of his sword. When there were no more opponents nearby, he could finally catch his breath, and Pinky thought, did he destroy all the small dragons? It seems that his level increased by 3. In the meantime, he decided to take a little rest, and since all the small opponents were gone, it was time to fight the main one. The Chaos Dragon released a powerful stream of flame at him, and he, watching the approaching light, got scared and jumped to the side, after which an explosion was heard. Fortunately, the stream of fire flew past, he caught his breath, but the dragon decided to attack again. Noticing this, he clenched his teeth in annoyance and rushed to run, after which an explosion was heard again. Looking at the hole in the wall left by the dragon's attack, he thought that he had wasted a lot of energy on those monsters. At this rate, he might lose. He would have to wait a few minutes before he could attack again. He had to hit the weakest point, the dragon's heart. At that moment, the dragon flapped its wings and rose high into the air, and Pinky noted that things were bad. Now his attacks wouldn't reach him. Haruto looked at his opponent and cursed, wondering what he should do now. He began to scan the area with his eyes, looking for anything that could help him, and wondered if there was really nothing he could do. His gaze fell on the cargo containers near the pillars, and an idea came to his mind. Pinky smirked and asked, did he think of something? The situation was getting more and more difficult. MC, without further ado, roughly grabbed him and ran towards the containers, and then used them to climb higher. Pinky said that no matter how high he rose, he would not be able to reach him, and he told him that he knew this, so he would do something else. After saying this, he threw the plush toy straight at the dragon, and then used the ability Stop Chain to freeze Pinky in the air. He used it as a support and jumped high, heading towards the dragon. Noticing the steam coming from it, he mentally exclaimed that he would not let it evaporate, and used the Stop Chain again. He knew that he did not have enough strength to hold it for more than a couple of seconds, but it would be enough. While the dragon was hanging in the air, he approached it with a loud cry and plunged the tip of his sword into its heart, pushing it deeper. The chains trembled. He continued to press on the crystal on the monster's chest, and sparks flew in all directions. At that moment, the chains broke, and the glow around the crystal only intensified. The dragon broke free from its shackles and roared loudly, and at the same moment, Haruto drove the sword deeper into the crystal, and this was enough to kill it. There was a bright flash and a beam of light shot into the sky, and by this time, Pinky had already fallen to the ground. Thus, MC defeated the Chaos Dragon and was now examining its corpse. The system reported that the level had increased by 15, and sword proficiency by 28. In addition, he received about 870,000 credits, as well as a Chaos Dragon Fang. The system advised him to contact the nearest guild to increase his rank to C. Pinky said that, as expected of him, he did a good job. However, he used it as a stepping stone. What should he understand this? However, Haruto did not listen to his indignation, but carefully read the notifications. His secret skill, Spacetime Magic, was increased by 20. The physical rewind skill, acceleration, and passive skill were increased to level 2, and the potential emission increased to 50%. Pinky said that he managed to prevent a terrible disaster thanks to this, so he forgives him. Sirens were heard from the side, and he said that it seemed like someone reported the incident. It would be bad if they found out about them, so it was time for them to leave. He climbed onto his shoulder, and MC noted that at least they agreed on something, and then ran away from the abandoned station and returned home. But before that, he ran into a grocery store and bought himself something to eat. He sat down on the couch and opened his sandwich, calling Pinky a fake Haruto and asking if he ever eats anything. He sighed and asked how a stuffed animal could eat. He wished he would use his brain sometimes. MC said that he used his brain and realized that stuffed animals don't talk. He was about to take another bite, but he remembered something and headed to the dresser where there was a picture of his family. He poured water into 3 glasses and told his family that he was home. After standing in silence for a few seconds, he asked Pinky not to laugh at him for this, and he told him that he wouldn't do that. They were the same person. He looked at the photo and thought that he better not tell him about what happened to Ria and keep it a secret. It's too early for him to know about it. When he becomes a good mage, then he will tell them everything. Haruto remembered that he was given the material for the weapon, the Fang of the Chaos Dragon, and Pinky pointed out that his sword was falling apart. It could not be repaired, so he got this just in time. Even if he doesn't go to school tomorrow, they will make him a new weapon. The next morning, instead of school, they went to the Adventurers Guild, a branch of the capital government office. He looked at the tall building and said in surprise that he always thought that he had no business here, but now everything has changed. Pinky got out of his backpack and smirked and noted that he was the reason he was here. Then they went inside, and MC said that they would go home once they were done here. After waiting for a while in the main hall, MC was called to the reception, and the guild worker asked how she could help him. He asked her to check his dungeon clearing results and handed her his ID card. Noticing in his mind that he looked very weak and inept, she agreed and took his card, then moved it to the system window and checked all of his information. A panel appeared in front of him that he could touch, and she said that she needed to confirm his identity. so let him put his hand on it, only then would she be able to see his results. He touched the panel, and while she was checking the information, her eyes widened in surprise. She was shocked that he had risen from rank E to C in just one day. That was impossible. She got really excited and said it was so weird. Could it be a glitch in the system? People started paying attention to them, and he thought it was bad. He hated it when that happened. He decided to try something and use the physical rewind on the screen, and when his information returned to the same as before, he put his hand on the panel. He awkwardly called the girl and said that it looked like the identity verification was successful. She looked at the system window and was a little confused, and he asked if something was wrong. Still confused, she gave him the card and thought it was very weird, after which he left and his information returned to its previous state. Pinky noted that he did a very smart thing, and he reminded him of his words about how they should change the future as little as possible. He went to the elevator, went inside, and went up to the right floor. But a barrier appeared in front of him, a door that cannot be opened by adventurers below A rank. Pinky told him not to worry, then turned into a letter and fell into his hands, telling him to bring it to the scanner. Haruto worriedly said that there was very serious security here, and his future self ordered him to do as he said. He put the envelope to the scanner, and the doors opened. Slightly surprised at how easy it was for them to get in, MC walked inside and looked around with a smile, and his future self offered to make him a weapon suitable for a space and time mage. A man's voice was heard from the side. He asked in confusion, "Do they have some kind of excursion planned for today?" Without looking up from his work at the computer, he asked him not to touch anything here, and Pinky said that this was not a trip for him. They just needed to make him a new weapon. Finally, the head of the weapons lab, Shiroyama Tokimina, took notice of him and stood up from his seat, asking with a tired look. So he was an adventurer, and his rank was higher than A? He walked up to him and scratched his head in confusion, saying that he couldn't shake the feeling that he was a student no higher than rank F. He didn't break down the door or anything, did he? Pinky told him to show him the dragon's fang, and he said that it was a very rare material, so he wanted him to make him a weapon out of it. The man leaned closer to the fang, and adjusting his glasses, activated his special vision, and noted that the material was quite good. He killed some kind of monster? He confirmed this, and Tokamine agreed to make him a weapon, after which he got down to business and entered the graphic key on his bracelet, opening a hatch in the floor. A special device rose from under the floor. The man said that it was the most high-tech device in Japan, the latest development in the field of another world. The analysis of the material he brought is missing from the guild's archives, so he will take the chance to study the material, and he will be able to use the device for free. Let him call him when he is done. He threw his bag on the floor and headed towards the device, and Pinky said that he had never made a weapon before, so he will teach him everything. He opened the device's control panel and thought that it was true. In the academy, you can only study weapon making with rank B and above. He from the future told him that the whole process can be divided into 4 parts. First, he needs to decide which weapon he will improve. For him, it will be a sword. Second, he must choose the attribute with which he wants to improve the weapon. The higher the rank, the less attributes are required. His sword is rank F, so he can only use 1 attribute. The third step is choosing the material. There are different groups of materials, such as minerals or materials from monsters, and in some cases, you can even combine 2 swords. He has a Chaos Dragon's Fang as a material. Step 4. Once he has everything ready, he can begin the synthesis. An important factor is the amount of time he will spend on making it. All of the above determines the strength of the weapon. Haruto said that he understood everything, and Pinky suggested that he begin. He put the sword into the device, and a list of elements appeared in front of him that he could choose. Fire, water, air, earth, and lightning. Pinky was slightly disappointed that there were only such elements at this time, and said that there was nothing to be done about it. Let him choose lightning. A compartment opened on the device. He realized that he needed to put the material there. As soon as the Dragon Fang was inside, the compartment closed, and it was time to choose the time of manufacture. Pinky told him to set 3 years, and he exclaimed with displeasure that he could not wait that long. But he insisted on his own, and had no choice but to agree. After that, the device announced that the synthesis of the weapon was beginning. The waiting time was 3 years. Suddenly, a black envelope flew out of his pocket, climbed into the lower compartment, and penetrated the device through it, after which it began to emit sparks, and the speed of work increased. Just a few seconds later, the weapon's synthesis was complete, and he received a lightning attribute A-rank Chaos Sword. The black envelope returned to his pocket, and Pinky said that he was so tired. MC was very surprised by this, and he from the future said that he can do this, but very rarely. The head of the lab was shocked that instead of 3 years, weapon was made in just a few seconds, after which he began to search the device log for what caused this. Pinky advised him to hurry, and he, putting the sword in his inventory, quickly said goodbye to the man and ignored all his attempts to question him. When he left the building, he heard a conversation between 2 guys about new rumors about an unknown adventurer who killed that huge monster so quickly, and besides, he was alone. They could not even imagine what kind of person he was. If his identity was revealed, the famous guilds would do anything to lure him away. His friend said that he would also like to be in an S-rank guild with Lumik. His friend just laughed at him. For him with his D rank, it was like walking to the moon. Haruto passed by them and told Pinky that things were bad and suggested that he go home, but he objected. He wanted to enjoy the day and test out his new sword. MC asked where they were going, and he told him with a smirk that they were going to where the sacred beast Cerberus lived. Haruto became nervous and was distracted by the call of a worried Rin running towards him. She burst into tears and said that she was so glad that he was alive. She was told that the monster that attacked the school was flying right after him. She wrote to him, but he didn't read the messages, and he also didn't come to school today. She was so worried about him. He asked her what she was doing here, and she said that she should be asking him. She was there as a representative to apply for a tutorial run of the dungeon. He said that he understood everything now. She was one of the top mages in the high school. Pinky told him to stop wasting his time, and Rin, smiling and wiping away her tears, said that she was really glad that he was okay in the end. He awkwardly apologized to her for making her worry, and then her eyes fell on the plush toy peeking out of his backpack. She immediately ran closer to him, and, her eyes sparkling with delight, said that the hedgehog was so cute. She shamelessly grabbed the plush toy, and then hugged it and said that it smelled like him. Pinky was in shock now, and the more she hugged him tighter, he began to lose his patience. That's when MC had an idea. He decided to get rid of him by lending her the toy for a couple of days, since she liked it so much. And she asked in surprise, "Is it true?" He confirmed it, and Pinky got nervous. Of course, the girl did not refuse the opportunity to hug the plush toy of the guy she likes, and thanked him for it. He quickly said goodbye to her, and was glad that he was able to distract her, and she waved her hand at him with a big smile on her face. Meanwhile, Pinky was terrified. He asked Haruto not to abandon him, and soon the next day arrived. MC went to school with Pinky, but the latter was not very talkative, and there was tension around him. Haruto asked him not to be mad at him. After all, he almost immediately took him away. He exclaimed in rage that it was not a problem. He just saw a childhood friend whom he lost 10 years ago. All thanks to him. He was slightly surprised by his gratitude and said that he was happy for him, and in the meantime, some suspicious guy was watching him from the academy window. He knew his name, and also that everyone called him the God of Plague, and noticed that he was so interesting. So he decided to make him his new target, and was already looking forward to having fun with him. When MC came to school, he was immediately called by the vice president of the student council, Sakura Koji Yuzuki, and slamming her hand on the table in anger, asked if he really didn't know anything. He confirmed this, and she, waving the papers with the report, said that the day before yesterday, when the dragon attacked the school after classes, according to witnesses, he ran in the same direction that the monster then flew. He lied to her that he switched to someone else and began to chase another student. He thinks that guy defeated him, and he was just lucky. She asked if he knows this student. He shook his head and said that at that moment, he was more thinking about how to escape. Realizing that she would not get the answer she needed out of him, she sighed heavily and adjusted her glasses, and Haruto said that he needed to go already. The lesson would start soon. She tried to stop him, but he ignored her and went out into the hallway, wondering why everyone suspected him. Pinky took out a tablet and showed him a video, saying that it was most likely because of this. The video captured him dealing with a dragon, but fortunately, his face was not visible. He wondered if they could delete the video with magic, and he told him that with his skill level, it was impossible. He sighed heavily, saying that he thought so, and when he entered the classroom, all the students fell silent and switched to whispers. Under the curious glances, he walked to his seat and thought that everyone had been avoiding him before, but now everything was somehow different. Rin suddenly ran up to him and exclaimed that he should be careful. She wanted to tell him something else, but at that moment, the student council president, Sumeragi Ryuga, from the 3rd year of high school, entered the classroom and said that she should not tell him anything else. He stated that he would take care of everything, and, slightly bowing his head, introduced himself as Haruto and said that he was a genius magician who no one could surpass in the rankings. In short, he was the strongest in this school. He clarified his name and, pathetically extending his hand to him, said that he was here to challenge him to a magic duel. After that, everyone in the class began to whisper and laugh quietly. They understood that Haruto was finished. The narcissistic guy said that he was a loser with no magical ability, but he somehow destroyed a device for measuring the abilities of magicians, and traces of unknown magic remained at the site. He also destroyed that furious chaos dragon by himself. He was wary, wondering how he knew all this, but he did not deny it. Ryuga smirked and remarked that it was very interesting, so he offered him to stop everything in its tracks. He waved his hand, throwing back his cloak, and said that, to be honest, he also defeated a dragon by himself. In a magic duel, they will find out who is more suitable for the title of Dragon Slayer. A magic duel is a special form of testing authorized and conducted by the agency between students to evaluate their skills. Based on the results of the duel, a ranking of the students is made. The students at the top are guaranteed privileges, and they usually join guilds after graduating from the academy. The only rule of the duel is not to use magic that could result in death, severe injury, or permanent damage. The challengers for the duel are chosen by the side with the lower rank, but they have the right to nominate an opponent with a higher rank. A person with a higher rank cannot refuse an invitation to a duel, but a person with a lower rank can refuse. MC sighed heavily and thought that he would never accept a challenge to a duel from a student who ranks first in the school. While Ryuga was waiting for his answer, he turned to Rin and advised her to pay more attention to her social circle if she wanted to become a member of the student council next semester. He looked at her hands, legs, and said that next time, during a private lesson, he will teach her how to properly join the student council. She couldn't stand up for herself and only thanked him in advance for his help. But Haruto couldn't stand such looks towards his childhood friend and resolutely stood up from his seat, saying that he agreed to a duel. Rin realized that he stood up for her like that, and her cheeks blushed. The student council president wanted to say something, but he didn't let him do it and stated that he had one condition, to which he smirked. He said that the loser would be expelled from the academy. Does he agree to that? The guy smirked. He was so confident in his victory that he easily agreed to it and left under his displeased gaze. It was time for lunch. He got himself a hamburger and went to a secluded place. While he was eating, Pinky said that it was impudent. He is becoming more and more like him. He warned him that this guy is strong, and he asked in surprise, does he know him? He nodded with a serious face and said that he would become the director of the Shinjuku branch of the guild. He would create many new fire element spells and become one of the 7 sages. Haruto pointed out that he would most likely become a fool, and he agreed with him because he was quite a nasty person by nature. He would use his position so that the women under his command could not refuse him. He was such a jerk. He was good at leading people. He was so confident that he was a dragon slayer, most likely because his subordinates told him something. Here is a talent for magic beyond the bounds. He has reason to call himself a genius magician. If he had not come to him from the future, he would not have been able to defeat him. He offered him to look at his stats, and MC opened the status window. His strength was 61 units, agility 159, defense 89, and magic 0. His intelligence is B rank, stress resistance B+, but potential C. He noticed that he had grown a lot, after which he touched the system window and changed it, saying that, however, compared to him, he was much weaker. Ryuga owned fire, water, air, and earth magic. Judging by the level of these skills, he attached more importance to fire magic. Also, his characteristics were quite high, starting from strength of 230 units and ending with magic of 642 units. His intelligence is A rank, stress resistance and potential are B. Haruto was surprised that he could see the indicators of others, and asked, is this also space-time magic? Is there really such a big difference between them? He was distracted from his thoughts by the crying of a girl named Yuko, whom her friend was trying to calm down. But she continued to cry and said that she can't do this anymore. Why can't she use magic at all now? She won't pass the exam. Her friend said that she treats her wand well, but she fell silent, and Yuko looked down in disappointment and said that she probably had no choice but to go to Ryuga's private lesson at his house. Hearing this, MC immediately tensed up and remembered how he pestered Rin. Yuko said that at least it would be over quickly. She would just undress and close her eyes. Haruto decided to help the girl and came out of the shadows to them. They immediately recognized him, and Yuko asked, isn't he that guy from the swordsman course? He said that she didn't have to go to those private lessons, he would help her. After that, he directed his hand towards her and, closing his eyes, thought that he noticed this in the lesson on measuring magical abilities. He feels the movement of magic in her body. Magic looks like burns. The flow of magic has stopped due to some spell, clearly exceeding its level. In this case, it is necessary to remove the root of the problem and return the flow of magic to normal. Then he opened his eyes and asked her not to be afraid. She froze in surprise, and he concentrated the energy in his hand and directed it into her body. The student, watching this, excitedly shouted, Yuko! Then she stood in front of her friend and, looking at the protagonist, was indignant. What is he doing? In response, he told her to try using magic. Yuko awkwardly agreed with him, and then concentrated energy in her hands. Magical flows burst out and she happily shouted, it works! The student shouted, this can't be. She became even stronger than before. Then Yuko approached the protagonist and thanked him. He replied, you're welcome. And she, wiping a tear from her face, told her friend that now she does not have to go to Ryuga. She replied she is so happy for her, Yuko. Sometime later, the protagonist walked down the street and, turning to Pinky, asked him to tell him what he should do to become stronger. There are 3 days until the duel. He must catch up with him. He stretched the joint of his hand and added, which dungeon of those he can pass raises his stats the most? Pinky, smiling, answered that he knew what he would ask. He had already found the location and information about the new dungeon. MC frowned and asked, what is the reward? He replied, a huge amount of EXP, new spells, the ability to test his new sword and summon a monster. He thought, just what he needed. Sometime later, in a B-rank dungeon, Azabu. Crystal Labyrinth, recommended level 65. The protagonist thought that he said that, But did he really have to fight all of them? He was standing surrounded by a huge number of dark crystal knights, and he asked Pinky what he thought was worth it. Pinky replied that it was worth it. He shouldn't let a single one escape. The protagonist took the sword in his hand and replied, "Of course." He kicked off the ground and ran forward and declared that he would kill all the monsters in this dungeon. 1 hour later, the lower level of the Crystal Labyrinth, B-rank dungeon, Azabu. The swordsman swung his sword and attacked the monster, shouting for it to take. The mage then raised her staff and shouted for it to get out of the way. She used an ability called Flame Stream. The next second, fiery energy burst out of her staff. She asked, "How is he?" When the smoke cleared, the Dark Crystal Knight remained standing. A system window appeared in front of him which said the spawn location is the Crystal Labyrinth dungeon. HP 2300, MP 50, attack 340, defense 610, magic resistance, B. Distinguishing features: a monster made of rare metal, endowed with a dark attribute. Since it is not a living organism, magical attacks against it are almost completely nullified, resistant to physical attacks. The swordsman took the magician's hand and desperately asked, "Their attacks don't work?" She said, "Oh no, what are they?" But before she could finish speaking, a powerful attack fell right next to them, and the swordsman opened his eyes in surprise when he saw the protagonist begin to strike the monster. He joyfully shouted, "They are saved." They are grateful to him. The protagonist said that there would be many monsters spawning in this dungeon. They should leave quickly. The mage picked up the swordsman, throwing his arm over her shoulder, and he asked, "And him? What would he do?" The protagonist turned around and said that in order for them to leave, he would have to distract them. He stood in front of several dark crystal knights and shouted for them to run as fast as they could. The swordsman shouted an apology and thanked him. Pinky then noticed that he had killed a total of 89 Haruto. That was not even half of what was needed. The protagonist replied that he knew. And Pinky added, he should finish as quickly as he could and raise his level. The protagonist attacked with his sword again and again, killing the knights on his way. Pinky said, "Haruto, such monsters give the most experience out of all those in the Crystal Labyrinth. Killing them will be the most effective, but for him, they are a difficult opponent." After that, MC sent the chains forward and, pushing off the ground, flew at the next monster, whose body was pierced by the chain. Pinky added, "But his weapon, the Sword of Chaos, is endowed with the element of lightning. This should help him. He must kill as many as possible." The protagonist, stepping on the place where the chains intersected, said, "No, he will not leave a single one." Then he pushed off the ground and dealt several blows to the monsters at once, cutting the knights into pieces. His face was covered in sweat when the General of the Dark Crystal flew towards him. A system window appeared in front of him, which said, "General of the Dark Crystal, HP 4800, MP 125, attack 560, defense 880, magic resistance A." He said, "Damn." Pinky noticed that he looked like a boss. Then the protagonist held his sword in front of him, blocking the attack of the monster. He thought that he should not be afraid of its power. He uses the special characteristics of the sword. Then a dark aura started to come out from his sword as the monster attacked next to him. The protagonist, looking at him, swung his sword, and the monster's head separated from its body. Pinky called out to him, and he shouted, "What?" "He's a little busy." He jumped away from the knights who jumped towards him, and Pinky said he thinks he already understands everything, but he'll tell you anyway. The principles of spacetime magic are different from normal magic. It's not related to magical abilities. It uses certain factors that control the flow of time in the world. The Chronos factor. Therefore, anyone, even without the ability to do magic, can learn it. MC continued to swing his sword, shouted, "And he's telling him about this now?" He explained that in extreme situations it's better to remember. The protagonist shouted, "That's right." He used the stop chain. Several chains rushed straight to the monsters, stopping them in their tracks. Pinky, turning to Haruto, told him not to relax. He began to be surrounded by dark crystal mages. A system window appeared in front of him, which said HP 1200, MP 490, attack 210, defense 320, magic resistance A. They began to concentrate energy in their hands, and Pinky said he is a space and time mage. He must always watch the Chronos factor, even during this. The protagonist dodged their attacks from side to side and said, "The flow of time, it must stop." Everything around froze, and the next second there was a powerful explosion. MC, appearing from the dissolving smoke, directed his hand forward, creating a magic symbol. With his other hand, he began to concentrate energy and fired a chrono beam forward, hitting several mages at once. Looking at his hand, he asked, "Is this how to use the flow of time?" Pinky confirmed. "This is how it works." He thought, perhaps he is even more talented than him. He fired a chrono beam. Then the protagonist stood on a mountain of defeated monsters. He plunged his sword into the chest of one of them and breathed heavily. The system reported that his level had increased, and he asked, "What is the next target?" After some time, they were in the Crystal Labyrinth, the inner part of the lower level hall. In front of them stood the main boss, the sacred beast Cerberus. Not long before, MC stood in front of a huge gate and suddenly grabbed his head, screaming in pain. Pinky explained that this was the after effect of prolonged use of spacetime magic. It puts a lot of strain on the brain. Does he want to go back? He replied that he did not. Then he put his hands on the gate and said that time is running out. They walked inside and Pinky, looking at Cerberus, said, "Haruto, this monster, unlike others, has honor, dignity, so he should not relax and must be attentive." The monster in front of them began to scream loudly, turning its heads in different directions. Pinky added, as they said before, "It is a magical beast with the soul of a samurai." The protagonist gritted his teeth, and then Pinky handed him a bottle and told him to drink it. He will feel better. After that, MC agreed with this and drank the contents, noticing that the boss was sitting on the ground. Is he waiting for him to recover? Strange boss. Pinky said that he has an old wound on his right side. He should aim there. The protagonist, wiping his lips with his hand, thought that he could feel his frightening aura again. He said that he understood. Looking at the monster again, he thought, was he really waiting for him? He must give the samurai his due. Next second, the boss approached him, swung his paw, and attacked forward, but the protagonist managed to jump to the side. Using his ability, he noticed a wound on the side of the monster. He thought, this is the wound. Then Cerberus approached him again. The protagonist, horrified, held his sword in front of him. One of the monster's heads grabbed it with its sharp teeth, and the protagonist let go of his sword and, pushing off the ground, flipped in the air, while one of the heads began to concentrate energy in its mouth. Pinky shouted, "Attack! He must dodge, Haruto." The next second, a powerful beam of energy burst out of Cerberus's mouth, and MC managed to move to the side. Then he concentrated the energy in his hand and, directing it to the boss's wound, shouted, "Here it is." After that, he pushed off and landed on the ground. Pinky, looking at Cerberus's changed behavior, asked, "Is this an impact on pressure points? Did he heal his old wound?" The protagonist explained that he repaid him for waiting for him to recover. He wants a fair fight. Pinky was perplexed. Is he not normal? He will die. He replied that kindness must be returned, even to a monster. Besides, if he died here, it would be the last thing he did. The next second, his sword flew right up to him, and Pinky was surprised. Did he give him his sword back? The boss turned his gaze to him, and the protagonist said, "No, he doesn't need it." He clenched his fists, and turning to the monster, said that he can attack. It's not for leveling up or killing the boss, it's a duel. Their gazes crossed, and they were ready to attack. Pinky was surprised, thinking, what's going on? Then the protagonist punched the boss, and Cerberus swung his paw, and MC, covering himself with his hands, flew into the crystal wall. Pushing off from this, he flew forward again, putting out his fist and attacking one of the boss's heads. Then another head opened its mouth, grabbing the protagonist by the hand, and he closed his eyes and cried out in pain. Pinky called him in alarm. The next second, the monster threw the protagonist into a crystal wall. Pinky screamed that he should pull himself together. Then the protagonist looked forward, seeing that Cerberus was concentrating energy in his heads. Pinky called him again in alarm, and he screamed that he knew. He used his ability and thought that he would show everything he could do. The next second, powerful beams burst out of the monster's mouth, plunging the protagonist's body into fire. But at that moment, he was already on the side of the boss, and he thought that he hoped that his body would withstand. Then, he swung his fist and dealt several powerful blows to the boss at once. After that, he, crying out in pain, flew back. His recently injured arm made itself felt. After that, Cerberus swung his paw, trying to attack the protagonist, but he again clenched his fist and screamed loudly, attacking the boss. After that, he pushed off the ground and swung his leg, shouting that this was his end. He delivered a crushing kick and Cerberus fell to the ground. He said, "Was he always this strong?" After that, the system reported, B-rank dungeon. Azabu cleared. After a while, he opened his eyes, and Pinky asked, did he finally wake up? He was standing next to him. After that, the protagonist crouched down, leaning against the wall and scratching the back of his head, said, it seems he finally defeated him. A system window appeared in front of him, which said that his level had increased by 20. He was surprised, and the level had increased well. Then he asked in surprise, what is this? The system reported that he received the cloak of the Space and Time Mage. Pinky asked, oh, clothes? He replied that he would try it on later. Then he looked at the boss in surprise, who walked up to him, happily waving his tail from side to side. MC held out his hand in confusion, and Cerberus placed one of the heads in his hand, closing his eyes. Pinky remarked that he liked him. Protagonist asked, and he was supposed to be the main boss? He added that he never thought that things would turn out like this, but he received a reward, so they would be grateful. The protagonist asked, a reward? He means equipment? He replied that he did not mean that. He meant the summoned sacred beast, Cerberus. This is the highest reward for completing the Crystal Labyrinth. But they still have to make a contract. If he gives him his blood, he will serve him. After that, the protagonist bit his thumb and dropped a few drops of blood on the monster's tongue. Cerberus began to disappear, and Pinky explained that he can now summon him at any time. The system reported that the sacred beast Cerberus is now his servant. He said that they got what they came for. 3 days later, Adventurer Academy, High School, Tokyo, Nakano Ward. As the MC approached the academy, the students present began to whisper among themselves. They should just look at him. Is he serious? At that moment, Rin, who was walking in the crowd, shouted, Haruto, where was he? And what happened to him? She couldn't get through to him. He turned his gaze to her and said that he was just specially training for the duel. She was surprised. Specially training? She thought, What did he do that made him look so bad? He then clenched his fist and declared, one way or another, he's ready. She looked at him and thought, is this still the Haruto she knows? At that moment, Ryuga was watching them and said that he thought that he had run away a long time ago, but to think that he came here so that everyone would pity him. Sometime later, they met in the hallway of the academy. Ryuga put his hand forward and said, well then, the duel will be today after school. Is he bracing himself, Mr. Mysterious Dragon Slayer? The protagonist, looking at him seriously, confirmed it, and the student council president asked, is he sure he didn't forget his stupid condition, right? The protagonist confirmed, the loser will be expelled. Ryuga put his hands on his hips and said that it was true, but it was kind of boring. The protagonist asked, what is he getting at? He waved his hand and offered to bet 100 million credits. MC looked at him in confusion, and he screamed, come on, he has to agree, or is he scared? He shouldn't ruin their fun. Pinky thought that he was using the other students so that Haruto couldn't refuse like always. Ryuga thought that he would take everything from him to make him his subordinate. Rin, putting her hand to her chest, said, this is too much. But the protagonist walked forward and waved his hand and said, okay, 100 million, they agreed. Ryuga turned around and waved his hand and said that he can't wait for the duel. And she, Rin, took the wrong side. She should prepare for a private lesson. After that, the protagonist, turning to his friend, told her not to worry. He would definitely win. After class, MC walked down the hallway and, looking at his phone screen, noticed that the protagonist from the future said the time of the duel. He replied that he knew, and then looked ahead in surprise, seeing the armed students. One of them, who was standing in front, put his hand forward and grinned. What a coincidence. Why doesn't he entertain them before going to Ryuga? The student holding the spear on his shoulder stood behind the protagonist and said, did he know? Each of them was promised 1 million credits for beating him. The bully asked, what's wrong? Was he scared? What a pity, even tears won't help him. The protagonist said, thank God. They looked at him in surprise, and he scratched his head and said that he was glad they were using the old tricks he had been preparing for, so banal that it seemed like a cliché. Now he could beat them up without regret. And he was first in line for his rightful share. He flexed his arms, and the student, pointing his sword at him, shouted, idiot, he shouldn't be insolent. Then he swung his weapon, but the MC, putting his hand forward, grabbed his face, and then threw him to the floor, pressing his head into the floor. One of the students said, slow, they should all attack together. Meanwhile, in the arena of the Adventure Academy, Ryuga, waving his hand, said, what Dragon Slayer? So much show-off, and in the end he didn't come? A waste of time. Turning to the judge, he added, does he agree that if he doesn't show up in a minute, you will automatically become the winner? He replied, of course. Smiling, he added, he's such an idiot to go against him, Ryuga. Another student added, he probably just ran away with his tail between his legs. Ryuga, smiling, thought, his servants probably dealt with him by now. Rin, who was sitting in the stands of the arena, clasped her hands in front of her chest and said, Haruto. At that moment, one of the students turned around and shouted, he's here. The protagonist actually came to the arena, and Ryuga, turning around confused, shouted, what is he doing here? He was surprised, what's wrong? They're having a duel? He replied confusedly, yes, well, that's him. Before he could finish speaking, the protagonist replied, okay, they should begin. And then he turned to the judge and told him to give the signal to begin. He agreed and then announced, Class 3A student Ryuga versus Class 2F student Kujo Haruto. They must prepare, begin. Ryuga gritted his teeth and thought, he doesn't know how he did it, but he will personally stop him here and now. He then clenched his fist, and after that, he waved his hand and shouted that he will not hold back. He released streams of fire energy flying around, and putting his hand forward, asked, well, is he ready for a real fight? The protagonist from the future said that he would start with a fire spell, Hellfire. It's a high-level magic. Then Ryuga concentrated energy in his hands, directed it forward. He shouted, he must die. Fire streams rushed forward, and he thought that he put everything into this spell. If it hits, he will die immediately. The protagonist used his ability. He understood that the fire bullets are warped by the flow of time as they move. He sees both the past position of this and where it will be in a second. If you watch it carefully then. The next second, the fire streams were very close to him, but he dodged to the side, and then repeated this several times. Ryuga was perplexed. What? Impossible. The next second, MC landed on the ground. Noticing sparks under his foot, he suddenly jumped up, dodging the fiery whirlwind, and Ryuga shouted, even his double attack didn't work? After that, the protagonist pointed his hand at him and used Chrono Beam. A powerful beam of energy fell on his opponent, and he fell to the ground, covering it with cracks. The people present, perplexed, shouted, Ryuga, it can't be. What kind of technique was that? Does he have magic? Rin smiled and said that it was wonderful. She knew. Haruto has changed. After that, the protagonist landed next to him and noticed that he was not going to give in. The student council president rose to his feet, grabbed his hand, and then clenched his teeth, shouted, idiot! He concentrated fire energy and, running forward, shouted, he must not anger him. The protagonist from the future said this is a fire dragon fist, an attack designed for close combat, a melting point of 3000 degrees Celsius. But the protagonist caught his opponent's fist in his hand and clenched it. Ryuga, grinning, thought, idiot, he will destroy everything he touches, including him. Let only ashes remain. And then MC tripped him. and the student council president fell to the ground, screaming in pain. The protagonist, concentrating fire energy in his fist, swung to strike, and the next second hit Ryuga near the head. He, looking to the side, asked in bewilderment, "What?" And the protagonist clenched his fist and explained that he put out the fire. Ryuga jumped to the side and shouted, "Trash from under the soul, he will still lose." Looking back, he thought, they know what to do, right? His subordinates mentally confirmed it, of course. The next second, a fire symbol appeared above the student council president. The protagonist from the future was surprised. The audience is transferring their powers to him and strengthening his magic? Such an obvious violation of the rules, it's even funny. The protagonist asked how much more of someone else's power he needs. His body was covered in fire, and he laughed as he began to transform and shouted, "Invincible secret technique." A powerful column of fire burst into the sky, and the protagonist looked at it in bewilderment. In front of him stood the embodiment of the fire demon. The protagonist from the future was surprised. A giant monster endowed with the strength of several dozen students from the magic course? He can't handle him that easily, Haruto. He replied that he knew. Then the fire demon opened its mouth, releasing a powerful stream of fire right at the protagonist. He managed to dodge and then, putting his hand forward, used a chrono beam, attacking the demon in the chest. The next second, he was surprised to realize that nothing happened. Then the monster released many fire hands from its body, trying to grab the protagonist. He, trying to dodge it, pressed his back against the wall and realized that he had nowhere to run. Then he used the ability and noticed that something strange was happening as time passed, as if there was a hole if he made the gap bigger. Then the fire demon took a step forward, destroying the ground beneath him. A flash of blue energy appeared on his paw, and then MC, flipping in the air, jumped to the side and shouted, "He must let him use the stuffed animal." Pinky asked, "Again? Okay, he just has no choice." Then the protagonist took it in his hands, threw it forward, and used the stop chain. After that, he stood on Pinky and, pushing off, jumped up, used his ability. He thought, this is it. This is a gap in time. He swung his weapon and cut the monster into two parts with a loud scream going down. In front of him stood the perplexed student council president. He clutched his head, repeating, "What the hell is this? It's impossible. As long as people cheer for him, the monster will appear again and again." "So why?" MC hit him with his shoulder, and he continued to scream. "Why doesn't it appear? He doesn't know such magic." He grabbed the protagonist by the chest, but he punched him in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground. Then the protagonist looked at the judge, and he said in fear, "The winner is Kujo Haruto." After a while, Rin stood up from her chair with a smile and exclaimed that they could begin, all together. The friends happily congratulated Haruto on his victory in the duel. The protagonist sheepishly scratched the back of his head and thanked them. Rin, holding a glass in her hand, asked the MC to do them the honor. The friends looked at him expectantly. Haruto raised his glass and agreed, saying that they would drink. The friends happily raised their glasses and slammed them together. The student sighed with relief and exclaimed that she felt better. He was very glad that the guy would leave school. The student sadly noted that he treated everyone like property. The student added that he tried to solve everything with money. And also the constant harassment. The guy is just awful. The student hugged Rin and said that even she, just a little more, and she would have fallen under his control. Rin tensely agreed with her friend. The student turned to the protagonist and asked what happened to those 100 million credits. MC took a sip and replied that he had completely forgotten about it. The friends yelled in great surprise. What a pity. Haruto put the glass on the table and clarified that he did not want money. The comrades looked at him with admiration, and Akane turned to the protagonist. She smiled sarcastically and asked what was going on with him and Rin. The disciplinary committee member became very embarrassed and yelled, "What was her friend saying?" Akane covered the grin on her face with her hand, showed a thumbs up, and replied that she meant that he went to this duel because of Rin. The friends looked at the protagonist happily and asked what was going on between them. Are they really dating? MC hesitated, and the friends clasped their hands in anticipation of an answer. Haruto quickly got up from his chair and, putting his hand on the table, said that he would step away for a bit. Akane irritably noticed that he ran away and yelled that it was a shame. After a while, Akane clarified that she had a feeling that the protagonist had changed. Don't they think so? The comrades agreed with her and noted that MC had become some kind of adult or something. Not long ago, he was inconspicuous. And then there was that nickname. Rin looked down embarrassedly and thought that since that day, Haruto had always helped her. She was sure that it would always be like this. That is, they even have a common secret, just between them. At the same time, in the restroom, the protagonist washes his hands in the sink. He was surprised to notice the message that had come. Rin wrote that she was very sorry. The girls had gone too far with their questions. He wouldn't imagine anything, would he? MC smiled and looked in the mirror and thought that life hadn't been this bright for a long time. He thought that this would never happen again. Haruto clarified, so the future can change? Pinky appeared behind the protagonist and called out to him. MC turned around, scratched his head and asked, "What's wrong?" They were going home soon, so Pinky should keep quiet. Pinky clarified that it was urgent. He said that the time had come and silence fell in the room. The protagonist asked, what was the purpose? Pinky seriously replied that he would tell MC the real reason why he was there. He asked Haruto to listen to him and said that the protagonist's younger sister, who MC thought was dead, was actually alive. Haruto was stunned and clarified that Ria had died a long time ago. Pinky replied that she was not in this world. He turned around and ordered the protagonist to get ready and said that they would save her. After some time, the protagonist remembered the past. Ria happily asked her brother to look. She picked up the scarf with a smile. The protagonist was surprised and noted that the scarf looked very warm. Did his sister knit it herself? Ria picked up the scarf and confirmed it and asked, "It's cool, right? She did it all by herself." MC smiled and replied that he understood everything. Ria laughed happily and handed over the scarf and said that it was for her brother. Haruto was very surprised and asked, "Really, for him? I wonder how the scarf will look on him." Ria puffed out her cheeks with resentment and asked, "Did he not like the scarf?" Her brother scratched the back of his head and replied that no, of course he liked the scarf. The sister was delighted and put the scarf on his neck and exclaimed that it was good. Her brother could have just taken it silently. However, the loops were a little loose. She walked away enthusiastically and exclaimed that everything was ready. After all, tomorrow is Christmas. This is a gift for him. The protagonist put his hand on the scarf and noticed that that's what it was and thanked his sister. Ria suggested throwing a party a day later when she returns from the concert. Her brother promises her, right? And then he will also give her a gift. In the end, MC couldn't keep his promise. The next morning, the plane carrying Ria and parents crashed and they never returned. Haruto came out of his memories after hearing Pinky's scream. He asked if the protagonist was listening to him. MC looked tensely at the photo on the closet. The red scarf knitted by his sister was lying next to the photo. The protagonist apologized and asked him to repeat it. Pinky jumped off the couch and ordered MC to pull himself together. Haruto has to go on a quest that can't be failed. The protagonist looked down thoughtfully and replied that he knew. But first, why is Ria even alive? All the passengers died in that crash. It can't be that she's alive. Pinky asked what the protagonist knew about the crash. MC replied that he only knew that something broke at high altitude. Pinky noted that maybe that's how it looked. It's beyond Haruto's understanding. That day, a space-time hole opened in the sky. It connects different worlds. Even in the future, it is impossible to predict where it will appear. This hole disrupted the gravitational field. Unfortunately, a plane was flying nearby. The pilot lost control of the plane due to the gravitational field and it soon crashed. The protagonist seriously said that this can't be. Even so, all the passengers died anyway, right? Pinky replied that MC remembers. No one survived, but his sister's body was not found. In other words, Ria fell into a space-time hole. It leads to the gap between worlds. Time and space there do not obey the rules of this world. Although many years have passed in this world, less than a second has passed for her. And when the space-time hole opens again, MC's sister will return to this world. That's why Pinky is here now. In the future, he found the point where the worlds intersect, but it was too late. That's why Haruto, from this world, has to save her. The protagonist confidently stood up from the couch and replied that he understood everything. Where will this space-time hole appear? Pinky answered that it is high above Tokyo Tower. Above the top floor of the dungeon is the Sky Fortress. The next day, Tokyo Tower stands among the houses. The protagonist and his friend look at it while standing on the roof. Pinky looked away and clarified that he would never have thought that MC would buy all those weird wands from the adventurer store. Haruto said that it was all thanks to the huge amount of money he got for the Crystal Labyrinth. Pinky noticed the scarf around MC's neck and noted that it was mid-June. Haruto adjusted the scarf and replied that he couldn't stand the cold. Pinky tensely clarified that it would be as the protagonist says. The gate to the Sky Fortress is on the observation deck. In 24 hours, the space-time hole will open again at an altitude of 300 meters above the top floor of the Sky Fortress, and MC's sister will appear from there. If Haruto doesn't make it in time, she'll fall and break. The protagonist clenched his hand into a fist and replied that he knew. MC clicked on the system window, which notified that these were the clothes of a time and space mage. He instantly changed his clothes and said that he would definitely save her. After some time, at the tower, the military looked at the protagonist and ordered him to stop. A gate to the dungeon appeared on the observation deck. Only adventurers with rank A are allowed to enter. The protagonist from the future asked what MC would do now. Haruto replied that there was no time. They would take a shortcut. He jumped off the ground with great force and jumped towards the tower. The protagonist from the future noticed that the protagonist was starting to act like him. MC, holding onto the iron beam with his hand, replied that the MC from the future was starting to irritate him. Haruto jumped onto the protruding part of the observation deck. He looked at Kurogane standing among the military. The future MC noted that Kurogane was nothing but trouble. The protagonist asked if the future MC knew him. Future Haruto replied that Kurogane was currently the head of the Minato Guild. Stubborn, too serious, and annoying. Kurogane would check the entire area in front of the gate and wait for the situation to change. The protagonist said that they didn't have time for that and needed to go quickly. He created a sword in his hand. Kurogane noticed the sound and asked what that was. He turned his head to the side and ordered them to check out what was there. The soldier agreed with him. He looked at the window and said that he thought the window had broken, but everything seemed fine. The MC instantly appeared behind him. He hit the soldier on the neck with his hand, and the soldier fell to the ground. Haruto thought that he had used physical rewind to make the window whole again. The protagonist adjusted his scarf and thought that it was time for him to go. The soldier called out to his superior and yelled that they had a problem. Kurogane asked what was going on. The soldier raised his hand to his head and replied that he checked and there was someone here. The unknown person was too strong. Kurogane sighed in irritation and said that he would deal with him himself. He resolutely ordered everyone to come with him. The protagonist in a military suit lifted the glass. Pinky smirked and noted that this was a good plan. MC instantly changed his clothes and looking at the portal suggested going. They entered the portal and were transported to another place. Haruto asked in surprise, "Is the world upside down? Going down the steps in the Sky Fortress means going up. It is called a dungeon, although it is in the sky." Pinky said that the theme of the dungeon is occultism. The protagonist will be attacked by zombies and ghosts. MC calmly clarified, "An army of zombies in the middle of the sky? That's ironic. In such an environment, it will be hard for him, as a swordsman." Pinky clarified that he had already taken care of that. Does the protagonist remember the element they inserted into his sword? MC remembered and exclaimed that for sure, it was lightning. Pinky asked, "Didn't he already tell you?" That's why he came at that time. He invited MC to go and they quickly ran. Haruto ran and looked at the enemy who appeared. The ghost raised his staff with the intention of attacking, but the protagonist instantly destroyed it, leaving a trace of mana. Pinky asked him to listen and said that, in his time, this dungeon disappeared almost immediately after it was discovered, so no one entered it. However, he has some information. The Sky Fortress consists of 100 floors. A strong boss that cannot be avoided guards every 20th floor. MC noted that 100 floors means 5 bosses. He looked at the phone and said that there are 20 hours left. Haruto can't waste time on small battles. He looked at the horde of monsters with great surprise and stopped. The zombies ran towards him with fury. The protagonist tensely exclaimed that this is a curse. A loud scream came from the crowd of zombies, and a stream of smoke rose up. MC ordered Cerberus to appear, and a powerful stream of mana threw the zombies up. Cerberus appeared behind Haruto, and the protagonist decisively said that they did not have time. They would destroy the zombies as quickly as possible. The zombies rushed into battle, and Cerberus quickly swung its paw. The protagonist looked at the defeated zombies, and noted that it was fast. Pinky clarified that, as its name suggests, the summoned beast Cerberus is a sacred beast. Its attacks are inherently endowed with the property of holiness. In any case, they continue to move. The system window notifies that they have already moved to the 20th floor of the dungeon of the Sky Castle. Cerberus immediately stopped and MC asked in surprise, "What is this?" Haruto tensely raised his head and looked at the dark energy in the sky. He jumped off the disappearing Cerberus and said that bosses appear every 20 floors. The protagonist must defeat them to make his way to the next floor. A carriage with horses appeared among the dark smoke. MC looked at the carriage flying down. It landed on the ground and the fallen nobleman, his wife and son got out of the carriage. Haruto looked at them and thought, there were 3 A-rank undead bosses. It didn't matter. If he couldn't even defeat them, how was he going to save his sister? Pinky yelled that they were attacking. The bosses quickly rushed into battle. The protagonist ordered the beast to hide. Pinky asked if MC wanted to use the thing Haruto bought from the guild store. The protagonist confirmed it and instantly used the Eye of Time. He thought he could see the flow of time, the way they were going to attack. MC created orichalcum knives and threw them towards the enemies. The fallen nobleman's son grinned ominously as he ran quickly among the smoke. He swung his dagger, but Haruto managed to duck. The protagonist quickly jumped off the ground, leaving a trail of lightning under his feet. He flew past the opponents at great speed and approached the fallen nobleman's wife. She raised her hands in rage and MC swung his weapon. He ducked to the side and threw the knife towards the nobleman. The opponent instantly threw a spear towards Haruto. The weapons simultaneously hit the opponents and the protagonist flew to the side. MC spread his legs to the sides, put his hand on the ground and stopped. Haruto thought that this was very good. He was in a better position. The protagonist was a good distance from them. He raised his hand and used explosion. MC clenched his hand into a fist and the weapons in the opponent's bodies lit up. A powerful explosion instantly thundered. Smoke spread around, and Pinky said that each orichalcum knife was created from rare dungeon metals. Amazingly rare wands, each one is worth 100,000 credits. They become explosive when an electric current passes through them, and the protagonist throws them around like that. Pinky was surprised and asked if it was profitable to win battles by throwing away millions of credits for each one. MC disagreed and clarified that it was not all. He thought that he had only destroyed their physical bodies. Now the opponents had returned in the form of ghosts. It was almost impossible to damage monsters of this type with physical attacks, but this also exposed their vulnerability. Haruto picked up a sword shrouded in light and used a light attribute, a spell. He jumped up with determination and shouted. The protagonist flew past the opponents and used a chaos meteor to create streams of mana. The bosses' bodies dispersed, and the system window notified that the noble family had been defeated. Haruto's adventurer level increased to 5. His sword skill was improved to level 8. 2,283,120 credits received. The protagonist noticed a staircase that appeared on the ground leading down. He approached it and asked Ria to wait for him. Her older brother was going to save his sister. After some time, Cerberus furiously grabbed the neck of one of the 5 bosses, Lamia, the dead queen. She instantly disappeared, and Cerberus calmly looked at MC. Haruto approached him and patted the beast on the head, said that it was good work. Pinky noted that Cerberus looked more like a pet than a sacred beast. The protagonist thought that there were 3 bosses left. After some time in the Sky Fortress on the 50th floor, Pinky ordered him to stop. Cerberus instantly stopped and MC asked in surprise, "Why stop here?" Pinky snorted and said that this can't be a mistake. He asked the protagonist to activate the Eye of Time and look at the wall. Haruto should see it. The protagonist used the ability and looked at the wall and exclaimed that it was a hidden room. Pinky jumped up and clarified that in his time, this dungeon disappeared before anyone could enter it. It seems that in this time it can be passed. The protagonist from the future asked MC to insert the letter between the stones in the wall, like last time. Haruto did it and moved to the room. The protagonist looked at Cerberus and asked him to wait here. After a while, MC approached a huge crystal. He calmly asked if Pinky would deceive him this time. Pinky asked him not to worry and replied that he would not do that. The system window notifies that this is an Akashic crystal. Effect: when interacting with the crystal, a person's hidden or suppressed skills are revealed. MC put his hand to the crystal and it instantly shattered into many fragments. The system window notifies that this is space-time magic, gravity bomb, avatar repeat, level 3 acceleration, and level 2 stop target acquired. Level 3, potential emission, adding 75% acquired. Haruto looked at his hands in amazement. Pinky noted that the protagonist already has an avatar repeat. MC asked what it is. Pinky smiled and asked Haruto to try it in battle. The protagonist closed his eyes and clarified that he knew his comrade would say so. Sometime later in the Sky Fortress on the 60th floor, one of the 5 bosses, the zombie Beelzebub, flies in the air with fury. MC asked what the boss's weakness is. Pinky answered that it is a flying monster. Beelzebub spits a liquid that melts everything, has the ability to regenerate, and emits an unpleasant odor. Haruto covered his mouth with his fist and asked, "Is Pinky just describing the boss?" The protagonist looked at Beelzebub approaching him and thought that the boss was fast. Beelzebub quickly pierced MC with his nose. Haruto's clone dissolved after the enemy's attack. Pinky clarified, "So the new skills came in handy?" Beelzebub quickly turned his head and looked at the protagonist. MC confidently used space-time magic, avatar repetition. The boss quickly flew towards him and Haruto used the 3rd level acceleration. He moved down with lightning speed. Pinky said that avatar repetition creates a clone of the protagonist from the past, which temporarily replaces his present. Many clones surrounded the boss. They created swords in their hands and rushed into battle. The clones simultaneously used Chaos Meteor. Beelzebub spewed poison from his mouth and several clones disappeared after falling under it. Many mana beams pierced the boss and surrounded him with lightning. Haruto calmly stands in the smoke holding a sword in his hand. Pinky looked at him and said that now the protagonist can call himself a ninja. MC asked him to stop and noted that it was somehow not his style. He looked at the stairs and clarified that there were 2 bosses left. Haruto put his hand to his head and made a sound of pain. He instantly fell to his knees and screamed. Pinky fearfully called out to the protagonist lying on the ground. 3 years ago, MC closed his eyes tiredly. Ria, looking at him sadly, asked for something. She will try very hard and will not give up halfway. His sister, leaning her hand on the sofa, asked Haruto about this even more strongly. The protagonist irritably clarified, "Is it really ballet? She really want to dance?" Ria was delighted and exclaimed that she really does. MC calmly exhaled and agreed, asked her to choose shoes that she likes and show them to him. Ria happily picked up the book and screamed, "Is this really true?" She hummed a melody and looked at the different shoes in the book. Haruto smiled and looked at her. After some time at the ballet school, Ria enthusiastically thanked them for waiting for her and exclaimed that she was ready. She approached her friends and they said that they were very happy that they were together now. Ria noticed something and raised her hand. The protagonist raised his hand smiling. The friends asked, "What kind of love is this for an older brother? It's so cool when an older brother supports you in everything. It smells like spring in the air." Ria shyly screamed. What did her friend think of? The girls are practicing ballet handstands. Ria raised her hand and turned her attention to her brother. She confidently raised her leg and spun around. The sister happily looked at Haruto and he thought that it seemed like she really liked it. Ria finished training and raised her hand in farewell to her friends. She happily exclaimed that she really liked it. Ballet is difficult, but she will try very hard. The protagonist agreed and noted that the sister was doing well. Ria looked at him and turned to her brother. MC looked at her and Ria asked, "Shoes and lessons must be very expensive?" Haruto smiled and asked her not to worry without agreeing. Ria asked sadly, "Ever since mom and dad went abroad for a conference, brother paid for everything with his own money?" The protagonist tensed up and thought, did she figure it out? He answered that everything was fine and asked her not to worry. His sister liked it, right? MC was glad that she found what she wanted to do. This is what he always wanted for her. Ria was embarrassed by her brother's words. She smiled and thanked him. Haruto lowered his head with a smile, and his sister grabbed his hand with hers and exclaimed that she loved him. The protagonist yelled that it was dangerous to do that here. Ria disagreed and said that it was not dangerous. They would always be like this. She decided that today she would try and cook him something to show how much she loved him. At this moment, MC sadly opened his eyes. Pinky sadly asked, "Did the protagonist finally wake up?" Haruto sat up and asked, "Did he pass out?" Pinky confirmed it and clarified that the protagonist used too much energy. MC looked at the system window and said that if he uses a high-rank elixir that he bought in the guild store. Pinky interrupted him and replied that it was not worth it. All the wounds have already healed, but he can't do anything about emotional fatigue. Haruto remembered something and asked, "What about the time?" Pinky seriously answered that there are 5 hours left. It's time for them to go. The protagonist thought that he would take Ria to the ballet again. Pinky looked at the leaving MC and thought that only one of the 5 bosses remained. After them, the final boss will appear, but at this rate, MC won't last long. He has no choice. MC climbed to the 80th floor, where he was met by one of the 5 bosses, the Acid Mummy King. In an instant, with a serious face, he used space-time magic, gravity beam, and tore the enemy apart. System windows appeared, which said that the Acid Mummy King was defeated. Adventure level increased by 2. Sword skill increased by 4. Received 3,561,110 credits. The protagonist, sighing, stroked the Cerberus and used a healing elixir. While his health was being restored, Pinky asked him with a smile if he wanted to rest. He refused with a serious face and added that they had little time. Only 3 hours left. They needed to go to the top floor. After some time, the protagonist reached the 100th floor of the Sky Fortress. He looked at the location and asked in bewilderment, "So they are now in space?" Pinky noted that it was time to fight the dungeon boss. After that, he would be able to get to where the space-time hole would open. MC entered the room where he was met by the main boss, the god of the underworld, the Ripper of Souls, sitting on a throne. Pinky noted that this boss was not even in the archives of his world. The boss inquired that this man was completely alone. MC asked in confusion that he was a highly intelligent being capable of perceiving speech. The god of the underworld explained that for one of the lowly human race whose representatives can only flock together and fight enemies, to come here alone. He must admit that this was commendable. The boss took his weapon and said that it was time for them to begin. Let him rejoice, for he uses the most deadly weapon. Pinky noted that this weapon is in the archives. High-ranking mages and illusions use this. The alloy causes mental distortion and inflicts a debuff. This weapon is very dangerous. The protagonist replied that he didn't care. He would defeat him. He scanned the boss and thought that this was his weak point. The protagonist used Evil 3 acceleration and rushed to attack. The Nether God was surprised and tried to strike, but he dodged and tried to strike. The boss blocked the strike and tried to counter, but MC created a copy and forced him to open up. With the enemy open to the strike, the protagonist tried to bind him with the stop chain, but the Nether God noticed that this type of curse would not work on a god. He cut his chain in an instant and swung to strike. The protagonist dodged at the last moment and stepped back. The boss said with displeasure that he managed to dodge the sacred scythe twice. Does he seem confident? However, in the end, he is just a lower life form that has to grovel instead of flying. Maybe he should chop off his legs? The monster used the cursed dimension and made him fall there. MC asked discontentedly, "What's upside down again?" Suddenly, half the room began to collapse, and he, falling down, thought that things were bad. It was not easy for him to climb to the 100th floor, and now he was falling. The god of the underworld noted that he would not be able to move so easily anymore. He took out the cursed scythe and began to strike. The protagonist worriedly thought that he needed to be calmer. He took out a dagger with a sword, and creating an explosion, was able to parry the attack. From such a powerful blow, the protagonist flew to the side and crashed into the wall. He stuck the sword into the wall, hung on it, and thought that this whole thing with falling was his illusion magic. He was trapped, but how to undo this curse? Suddenly, the god of the underworld spat poison at him and got on his leg, and then noted that he would be his last experiment. The anger of the dead will destroy him. He wonders what will kill him first, the hatred of his own kind, or his scythe. MC was scared and thought that he needed to get out of here urgently, but how could he do it? The boss swung again, and saying goodbye to him, made a dash. He closed his eyes and wondered if this was really how it would end. Suddenly, the protagonist from the future shackled the enemy with a level 78 stop chain. Haruto was perplexed that he had done this. He explained with a dissatisfied face that this was his last chance. The protagonist from the future took his human form and said that it would be bad if he died because of him. He used the skill, Absolute Rewind, and turned back time. The hole in the floor healed, and the boss exclaimed in surprise, "How did he cancel the curse cast by God?" The MC from the future with a serious face noted that he had not looked like this for a long time. The boss of the underworld shouted furiously, "Do they really think that quantity will change anything? Stop warming up, let his best experiment appear. He will bring these sinful people to holy judgment." In an instant, a portal appeared next to him, from which a crowd of angels with scythes began to fly out. The protagonist from the future asked, "Can he create monsters of rank A+?" Let Haruto get up. He will deal with the little things, and he has a soul ripper on him. He is a god rank, he is incredibly strong, but let him not worry. He learned to control the magic of space and time. He has every chance of winning. After all, he is him. The protagonist stood up and replied that he understood everything. The MC from the future told him the plan, and the boss, seeing this, ordered the angels to destroy them. The two of them quickly ran in different directions. Haruto from the future used gravity territory and shouted, "What's the matter? Let them attack. After all, their opponent is him." At this time, the protagonist ran straight towards the enemy head-on. The protagonist from the future used the acceleration field on him and shouted that he almost succeeded. The god of the underworld irritably used the cursed dimension, but MC instantly interrupted the use of his ability and shouted that he had already seen this technique. The boss excitedly exclaimed and tried to do at least something. The protagonist thought that there was no point in attacking from behind. He needed to take a shortcut. His weak point, an open seam on the fabric of time, was in the heart area. He went straight to the forehead, began to parry the attacks, and using the skill Chaos Meteor, hit the enemy. The god of the underworld used the skill Curse Edge and shouted, "Let him not get carried away." In an instant, Haruto received a serious injury, but he reproduced the avatar and thought that it could distribute and reduce damage. MC, without losing speed, ran towards the opponent's forehead again and delivered a powerful blow to his weak spot. Suddenly, he noticed that he had no heart. The boss attacked with lightning speed and cut him in two, and then, grinning, asked if he really thought that his weak spot was in the heart area? One of the hallmarks of the god of the underworld is a fake weak point. It is a deception for stupid people. Now only he is left. Let him come. The protagonist from the future excitedly said that this is impossible. Then, his weakness. The boss interrupted him and exclaimed that gods do not have weaknesses. If anything can compare to weakness, it is the very concept of his existence, the forbidden crown of hell. He does not need his pleas. Let him die. Future MC called out to Haruto and asked if he heard. Now they know it. He, sitting on the head of the opponent, agreed. The god of the underworld, seeing this, shouted in surprise that it was impossible. How did they do it? The protagonist explained that the one he cut in half was a clone. When he struck him, he created a clone using avatar playback, and it rushed to attack. And the real one was lying on the floor. The boss exclaimed in fear that he should have died after a direct hit from the sacred scythe. The protagonist replied that the wound was definitely fatal. However, before that, a rewind spell was cast on him. Right before his death, his time rewound. The MC from the future noted that this is a very difficult skill. It cannot be used twice on the same target. But it seems that they succeeded the first time. He tied the boss with a stop chain and asked that they were moving on to the climax. The protagonist inquired. He said that his weak point is the crown? The two of them exclaimed that along with his stupid head, they would absolutely and completely destroy him. The protagonist, remembering Ria's words about her love for him, cut off the enemy's head and the monster shattered into small pieces. System windows appeared, notifying that the god of the underworld, the Soul Ripper, had been defeated. 124,356 experience points received. 35,635,343 credits received. MC noted with a serious face that the extermination was complete. Suddenly, a staircase to the next floor appeared next to them. The protagonist from the future called out to him and said that it was time for them to go to the top floor. The protagonist agreed and asked if this is what he would look like when he grows up. He replied that he would hit him now. Haruto noted that it would have been easier if he had helped him from the beginning. He replied that, as he said, this is an exceptional case. It is not as easy as it seems. Let him stop talking. The space-time gap will appear soon. They had to hurry. After a while, they climbed to the top floor of the Sky Fortress. Suddenly, a rift appeared in the sky, with Ria lying in the center. The protagonist from the future noted that the rift would be connected to this world for another 9 minutes and 28 seconds. They didn't need to hurry too much. He took off in an instant, and the protagonist, remaining on the ground, exclaimed with displeasure. The MC from the future created an acceleration field that appeared in the form of a ladder. After a while, they got to the center of the rift. Haruto excitedly called out to his sister and shouted that he was here. The protagonist from the future pointed out that he should calm down. Everything there doesn't work the same way as in this world. Only space-time magic will help here. He will go inside and push her out with magic, and he should try to catch her. He climbed inside the rift and began to push the girl out, when suddenly the rift began to quickly close. The protagonist excitedly shouted, "What's going on?" The MC from the future excitedly noted that this was strange. The rift is closing too early. He will hold the gap closed using his power and let him pull her out. He began to use his abilities to hold the rift closed. The protagonist, with a serious face, also began to use his skills to pull his sister out. Future Haruto noted that if the rift closed on her, she would be torn apart, and if he did something wrong, she would break. The protagonist, with a serious face, answered that he knew it. Suddenly, the girl flew out of the rift and he caught her. Ria clung to him and began to hug him. MC called out to Future Haruto and shouted that he was next. Let him go back. In response, he only remained silent. The protagonist excitedly asked what happened. Let him hurry up and get out. He smiled and explained that this was where their paths diverged. He had reached his limit. He could no longer exist in this form. All the Chronos factor he had stored inside his body was spent on holding the rift. He did not have the strength to return to them. The protagonist screamed in fear that this couldn't be. He added that he hadn't behaved very well. He complained a lot and made mistakes. He was the type to give in to emotions and start doing stupid things as soon as they got something. He didn't regret at all that he had fought together with such a sincere and kind person. This rift would never open again, so they said goodbye. The MC reached out his hand in confusion and screamed that this was impossible. He replied that he trusted him with his dreams. Let him save this world for him. The protagonist, with tears in his eyes, smiled and said that he should leave it to him. The protagonist from the future chuckled and replied that he would take him at his word. The girl was safe now. He was glad that she was okay. Ria asked in confusion, was he her brother too? Suddenly, memories came flooding back to Haruto from the future, and he said with a smile that he was glad to see her home. The rift closed in an instant. MC fell to his knees and thought hysterically that at the same moment, he lost and found a dear person. One day after completing the dungeon's Sky Fortress, the protagonist returned to the Adventure Academy. Suddenly, at the entrance, he was met by third-year girls who joyfully exclaimed that they were waiting for him. One of the girls noted that, as members of the delegation of the Ryuga Victims Association, they would like to express their sincere gratitude to him. Thank him very much. Another student noted that she was so glad that at least someone beat up this pervert. Another replied that they would not have to cry into their pillow anymore, right? The girl pointed her finger at the protagonist and said with a smile that he saved them, who gave him the nickname God of Plague. Anyway, MC excitedly began to stop them and thought that he wanted to live a quiet life. Suddenly, Yuzuki approached him and, bowing her head, said that as a representative of the student council, she wanted to apologize for the incident with the president. The protagonist excitedly replied that there was no need for that. Everything was fine. It wasn't her fault. The girl pointed out that she couldn't pretend that nothing had happened. She would soon become the new council president. By the way, wouldn't he like to work for the good of the school? She was recruiting a new student council. She would like him to become the leader of the student council mages. The MC thanked her and replied that he didn't want to. Yuzuki took his hands and exclaimed that she would do anything. Rin, seeing this, was perplexed. Wondering what had gotten into her, the girl grabbed the student council vice president and pointed out that class would start soon. She pointed out that they would continue their conversation during lunch. Let him please not leave the classroom. That's an order from the student council president. Sometime later, the protagonist was sitting outside, figuring out the system. He opened the statistics window and noted that such indicators are amazing. It seems to him that he will not lose to anyone now. Of course, after so many victories. Suddenly, he noticed that the system window said that he had 43,353,345 credits. The protagonist said in surprise that an ordinary schoolboy should not have such an amount. Suddenly, he heard Yuzuki screaming. She entered the roof and shouted, "Where is he?" The other girls answered that he is not here. The girl irritably shouted that she told him not to leave the classroom. One of them suggested looking for him in the gym, and they left. MC, standing on the stone roof of the exit, came down and noted that he needed to come up with some kind of plan if everything continued like this. Did he have any ideas? He looked at the empty bench, and looking up at the sky, said that the protagonist from the future was no longer there. After some time, the protagonist returned home with a bag of groceries. Ria exclaimed with displeasure that he was very late. She had waited for him for so long. He smiled and noted that her brother was at home. After some time, Ria set the table and said, "Tada!" She closed her eyes and, turning to the main character, told him to look at the delicious food his little sister had prepared for him. He looked at the dish in surprise and said, "Wow." Then she noticed the bag in his hands and said, "Did he really buy this at the store?" He looked at the bag in his hands and thought that he had come in out of habit. She was indignant. Seriously, he should stop buying unnecessary products. He awkwardly scratched the back of his head and replied that he understood, and she raised her index finger and said that they were living together now after all. They had to save money. After that, he smiled and agreed. That's right, he understood. Then she called him and, smiling, said, "Welcome home." He agreed with her and said that he was glad to be home, Ria. She put her hand to her chest and said, "Oh, that's right. Before sitting down to dinner, you have to." Before she could finish speaking, the protagonist looked at the photo of their family. She said, "Mom, Dad, they are grateful to them for raising them. Please, they should continue to watch over them." She folded her hands in a prayer pose, and MC, looking at her, did the same. And then she noticed the scarf she gave him. Had he had it all along? He answered, "Of course." She smiled and added, "But it's June now." He answered that he often gets cold, she knows that, right? After that, they sat down at the table, and she, again folded her hands in a prayer pose, said, "Okay, enjoy your meal." His sister Ria cooked it for him. He folded his hands and thanked her. After that, he tried the dish, and she asked, "How is it? Does he like it?" The protagonist, chewing his food, confirmed it. "Very tasty." She said that she was glad, and he answered that she was wonderful. Then she asked, "But did she really come back?" He confirmed it. He submitted all the necessary documents. He said that his sister was actually alive. She laughed slightly and thanked him. Then she clenched her fist and added, She lost 2 years, so she will have to try hard in school, he added, and in the dance academy. She looked at him in surprise and asked, but will money be no problem? He said that she does not have to worry about it ever, even in the distant future. The total amount of loans in his account was 43 million. He said that she will be able to go to the dance academy even when she becomes a grandmother. She was surprised. How is that? What does that even mean? Then she turned her gaze to the sofa and asked, is this all thanks to him too, right? Him from the future. The protagonist took Pinky from her hands and confirmed it. They should be grateful to him. He remembered his future self's words. Then he said that he trusts him with his dreams. He should save this world in his place. The protagonist looked at the toy in his hands and thought, but how can he save the world now? Then Ria reached into her pocket and said, she just remembered, she had this in her pocket when he saved her. She put the cube on the table and asked, does he know what this is? He looked at it and shouted in surprise, a cube with a message? The next second, a hologram of Pinky appeared in front of them, who said that if they were looking at this, it means that he is no longer in this world. He is sure that he does not know what to do now, Haruto. He thinks how can he save the world without him? As the strongest peerless magician, he prepared for this outcome. He is very cool, right? He can praise him. The protagonist thought that he even behaves like this in the message. And then Pinky continued, Haruto, he will send a letter from the future version 2 to his storage. He asked in surprise, a letter from the future version 2? He explained that everything he needed would be there. Did he understand, Savior? The system reported, a letter from the future version 2 was sent to the storage of the adventurer Haruto. Pinky added, he shouldn't relax just because he was not around. After that, he disappeared, and Ria, looking at her brother, asked, he was now called the Savior? Really? So cool. He scratched the back of his head awkwardly and replied, nothing like that. She asked, what? Meanwhile, at the general headquarters of the Adventurers Guild, Tokyo, Marunouchi District, upper floor, a meeting of the 7 sages. The director of the Minato branch, Kurogain, Iron, suggested moving on to the next topic, the elimination of the Chaos Dragon at the Nakano train station, the unauthorized use of equipment without the required A rank or higher at the Shinjuku branch, and the unauthorized raid of the Tokyo Sky Fortress in just a few days. There's a very high probability that all 3 violations were committed by one person. They urgently need to find out the identity of the culprit. The 5th sage, the King of Kings, Tantalum, said, the Sky Fortress has never been explored. The 2nd sage, the fortune teller, Platinum, added, but the dungeon is probably S rank? He wondered, did the intruder clear the entire dungeon alone? The 6th sage, the noble magic swordsman, Kiryu Muramasa, asked thoughtfully, is that possible? The 3rd sage, DDD Oz, remained silent, and the 1st sage, the omni-elemental, Ki, said, perhaps this can be considered a challenge to the guild. Really interesting. The 4th sage, the crazy witch, Serena, laughed slightly and said, I wonder what kind of dark power he wields. The 7th sage, Akashi's vision, Tellurium, said, the purpose of observation. Kurogane said, I hope that everyone gathered understands the importance of the situation. This unknown adventurer, once they find him, they will make him one of the executive directors of the guild and a fighter in the upcoming war between the worlds. With this, he declares the meeting of the 7 sages over. The next day, Sakura, holding a balloon and her mother's hand in her hands, walked forward and happily said, hooray. They stopped near a flower shop, and her mother, bending over to the flowers, noticed how beautiful the flowers were. The employee said that they were currently having a promotion, a 30% discount. At that moment, Sakura noticed a butterfly flying past. Running after it, she went out onto a crosswalk. At that moment, a truck was approaching her at high speed. The driver, seeing the child, was perplexed and shouted, what? Her mother turned around abruptly and shouted, no. She must stop, Sakura. Be careful. The next second, the balloon exploded. Those present watched in surprise. Her mother was kneeling on the crosswalk. But the next moment, the protagonist appeared, holding the child in his arms. The mother looked at him in surprise with tears in her eyes. She got to her feet and ran to her daughter in alarm, shouting, Sakura! The protagonist, looking at the girl, asked, were you scared? She shouldn't be scared. She was safe now. He put her on her feet, and she thanked him embarrassedly. The mother threw herself into her arms and shouted, thank God. She's okay. The protagonist looked at them and sighed with relief and thought, everything worked out. When he noticed her, he thought he wouldn't make it in time. But due to the magic of space and time, his drink and her balloon were damaged in the process. But it's nothing compared to a human life. He saved her with his power. Then Sakura's mother looked at him and said that she would thank him now. He replied that she didn't have to worry. It wasn't necessary. She put her hand to her chest and screamed, but he saved her life. He should at least say his name. He awkwardly scratched his cheek and said he would like her to pretend that nothing happened. He thought that he didn't want to stand out even more. Then he took his bag and, turning in the opposite direction, said that he was running. The woman stretched out her hand and screamed, please, he must wait. And the protagonist quickly ran forward and said, oh my God, he's late. Sometime later, at the Adventure Academy, High School, Tokyo, Nakano District. MC, jumping from roof to roof, stopped after the grate and looked down to see Yuzuki asking the students, has Haruto arrived? They replied that he is not there yet. He sighed and looked away. After a while, he was sitting in class, while everyone was looking at him. He thought that he did not even need to look at the passage of time to feel everyone's gaze. At that moment, Rin, looking at him, thought, Haruto, it feels like he is somewhere far away, just like when she met him near the guild. Not long ago, the Adventurers Guild, branch of the Shinjuku Metropolitan Government, Tokyo, Shinjuku Ward. Rin explained that she was a student at the Adventurers Academy in Nakano Ward, and she had cleared a B-rank dungeon. The worker replied that he understood and thanked her for her work. She then said that in that case, she will go. After that, he asked, Nakano? Maybe she knows a student named Haruto? She was surprised and then answered that she knew him. The worker said that Tokimin from the weapons synthesis lab developed a new theory. He called it the Haruto theory. When he asked about the name, he said that a student from Nakano gave him a hint. It sounds strange, right? In the present tense, she looked at her friend again and thought, how is he? After that, the teacher announced, that's all for today. Oh yeah, about the exchange student coming next week. Sometime later, during lunch, the protagonist sat on a bench on the roof of a building, holding a black letter in his hands. He thought, a letter from the future, version 2? It said, Haruto, he first needs to perfect his swordsmanship. After all, spatial magic is auxiliary. His true talent lies in swordsmanship. If he wants to become a great mage like him, he must focus on the sword. When the time comes, he will understand why he needs it. Well, for now that's all. The protagonist leaned his hands on the back of the bench and said, secretive as usual. He never explains anything. At that moment, Muramasa stepped onto the school grounds. He used silent steps and instant movement. The next second, he appeared on the roof next to the protagonist. Seeing him, he summoned his sword and shouted, who is he? Muramasa turned his gaze to him and said, here he is. He wants to borrow his power. The end of this world is near. MC, frowning, thought that he did not feel his presence until he came close. He is not that simple. Then he asked, he says, the end of the world? What does this mean? Muramasa adjusted his glasses and answered, that's what it means. In the near future, everything he holds dear will turn to dust and disappear. The protagonist, thinking about his sister, asked in surprise, what? Then he pointed his sword at him and said that he can't just trust him. He does not know his name or who he is. He just appeared and started forcing him to do something. He reminds him of someone. He does not like it. He will do what is best in his own opinion. He will decide for himself. Muramasa smiled and then showed him the screen of his phone, which had a photo of his sister dancing, and he asked, even after this? MC, paying attention to the photo, thought, Ria, freak. He swung his sword, releasing his energy. Muramasa thought in surprise, this is a fighting spirit. And some kind of unusual one. He knew that this guy had great potential. Then he asked him not to worry so much. He took a photo when he was studying him. He did not touch his sister. He swears by his sword. The next second, he appeared next to the protagonist and added, however, if he needs to face him in battle, he will gladly do so. The protagonist turned his gaze to him and noted that he crossed the line. No matter what happens now, he should not regret it. Muramasa jumped forward and, reaching for the hilt of his sword, said that he was prepared for this from the beginning. He used killing intent. The protagonist, using his ability, thought in surprise, what is this? There is no chronofactor around him at all? He does not see the flow of time. Muramasa asked, is there something wrong? Ready or not, he's attacking. The next second, he appeared next to the protagonist and said, killing intent does not mean creating a killing aura and revealing all of his intentions. Quite the opposite. It means killing his aura and presence. The next second, he swung his sword. MC managed to jump back and thought, is this killing intent hiding the chronofactors around him? He asked, why is he telling him about his skills? Is he pretending to be a villain from a manga? Muramasa replied that he was telling him all this because he will be the winner anyway. If he hides his presence, victory will only be a matter of time. At that moment, he appeared behind the protagonist and added, like that. The protagonist turned around and he swung his sword, thinking, got caught. Then the protagonist disappeared and Muramasa shouted in surprise. What? The protagonist used avatar playback. He appeared behind his opponent and swung his sword. Muramasa managed to dodge and thought, what's going on? After that, he jumped a few times and landed near the entrance to the roof. He thought that it should have hit him. Wasn't that just an after image? The next second, MC used acceleration and instantly appeared next to his opponent. Muramasa thought this is his true power. Interesting, their swords crossed and he thought, come on. Well, what will he do next, Haruto? The protagonist thought, if he can't see the flow of time, then he used the stop chain, blocking the opponent's weapon. Then he clenched his fist and swung to attack, shouting, Chrono Fist. He must die. At that moment, Muramasa let go of his sword and used Steel Body. He crossed his arms over his chest, blocked his attack, but from the force of the blow, he flew back, stopping on the floor. He thought, what was that? It was not just a blow. He knew he was awakened. MC unclenched his fist and thought, shit, even the last attack was useless? The next second, Muramasa said, enough. The protagonist was surprised. What? He, walking forward, said that he sincerely apologized for what he said about his sister. Then he bowed and added, please, he must forgive him for this deliberate attack. It will not happen again. The protagonist was confused. What? Then Muramasa bent down, raising his sword, and said that in that case he will go. The protagonist extended his hand to him and shouted, hey! Why is he deciding everything himself? Their match yet. Before he could finish speaking, Muramasa said, of course, the match is not over yet. They will continue this at his school. The protagonist was surprised. At his school? And he noticed that he has a unique talent. However, he is still weak. He has not yet reached the level he should be at. He must learn the secrets of the swords at his school to become stronger. MC opened his mouth in surprise, remembering the message from the black letter, and said, "Didn't he already say that he can't just blindly believe his words?" Muramasa adjusted his glasses and agreed, saying that he was definitely stronger than him now. Is that not enough for him? He will wait for him at school. After that, he disappeared. The protagonist surprisingly took out a sheet from his pocket and asked, "Is this the permission to exchange students between his school and Azabu's school?" He thought in surprise. Did he put this in his pocket during the battle? Then he said, so that's what he meant by his school. After that, he clenched the sheet in his hands and shouted in annoyance, "Annoying guy." At this time, Muramasa, standing outside the school, turned around and thought, Haruto, he's good. Before all the sages use him as their sixth man, he will train him. And then, after joining the 7 sages, he will make him perform a coup d'etat and take their power for himself. He will interfere with Kurogane. Meanwhile, MC was reading the contents of the sheet and thought, exchange training? It said, student exchange program. The goal is to improve the skills of the students in each school. The duration is 1 month. The requirements for admission are to be a student of a school that belongs to the adventure agency. Student council members are given special conditions at the host school. Then he looked to the side. Yuzuki ran up to him and put her hand forward and shouted, she found him. He will definitely join the student council today. The protagonist stood up from his seat and replied, great, just in time, he will accept. She froze in surprise and then shouted, what? A week later, Adventure Agency, Azabu Branch, Tokyo, Minato Ward. Yuzuki, walking next to the protagonist, noticed that she was impressed by him. Not only did he join the student council, but he also wanted to go to Azabu High with her. He smiled and replied, of course, he was a member of the student council now. It was his duty. He thought it was just written on the sheet that student council members were entitled to special privileges. Then she added, Azabu High produces a lot of S-rank adventurers. It is the best school in Japan. In addition, only 3% of applicants, the best of the best, get into this super elite school. Approaching the entrance, she turned around and said happily, they should try to keep up. The protagonist agreed with her, and then they went inside. Yuzuki said, first they need to say hello to the chairman. MC, looking around at the students, thought, everyone seems to be wondering where the 2 strangers came from. Well, there is no point in worrying about it. They will solve problems as they come. At that moment, Yuzuki put her hand to her chest and said, there is no need to worry, Haruto. She is with him. He awkwardly agreed with her and thought, is she really okay? After some time, the Adventure Agency, Azabu Branch, 20th floor, Chairman's office. Tokyo, Minato Ward. Yuzuki, stopping at the door, noticed that they had arrived. This was the chairman's office. After that, she knocked and asked to be allowed in. Muramasa was sitting at the desk in the office. And when they entered, he said that he had been waiting for them. He was the chairman of this school, Kiryu Muramasa. The protagonist thought, seriously? Then the chairman stood up from his seat and, spreading his arms out to the sides, said, welcome to Azabu School. In their time, when magicians were considered the cream of society, they only taught swordsmanship. Even in the Adventure Agency, they were the only ones like that. Instead of magic duels, sword duels were held here. During training in this program, some will rise in the rankings through duels. With these words, he stood in front of the protagonist and raised his index finger. Yuzuki put her hand on her chest and asked him to wait. There shouldn't be anything like that in the program. The MC said, if that happens, he'll be able to fight him again, Mr. Chairman. Yuzuki was surprised again, and he turned around and replied, the first place in the top is given the right to fight the strongest person in this school, him. The protagonist said that it was great. He would quickly get to first place and defeat him. The faster he did it, the faster he could go home. He should listen. He didn't like that their fight ended halfway. Once they finished this, there would be no reason for him to stay here. Muramasa closed his eyes and put his hand on his chest and said that he agreed. No matter what the goal and attitude, this school respects swordsmen who aim to get to first place. After that, he opened the system window and said that he would give them a student ID and a schedule so they could use the school's equipment and classrooms. And of course, they will be given first-class access. A system window appeared in front of the protagonist which said, Kujo Haruto, Swordsman Course, Level 98. Azabu School Position, 4395. Access Level A. After looking at this, he thought, if the grading system here works the same as in Nakano, then he should challenge the students who are higher than him in the top to a duel. After that, the chairman wished them good luck. Yuzuki and the protagonist walked down the hallway. She said, unusual turn of events. Then she looked at the protagonist and shouted, she can't do it. How can she claim first place? He answered, that's right, from the very beginning of the new Miss President, that's not necessary. He thought, the fastest way to rise in the top is to go to a place where high-ranking students gather. Several ideas appeared in his mind, and he thought, that's right, he will go there first. After some time, the Adventure Academy 2F cafeteria. Yuzuki, walking inside, was surprised. The school cafeteria? He forgot to have breakfast? The protagonist turned around and awkwardly agreed. At that moment, a hologram appeared next to them and said, "Welcome. Are they exchange students and from another part of Japan? Their school motto is, breakfast determines their whole day. They advise all students to have a good breakfast. If for some reason they were unable to have breakfast at home, they can eat as much as they want in the cafeteria." The protagonist thought, this hologram sees their student ID and plays targeted offers? Yuzuki noticed the variety of food and shouted, he just has to look at all these delicious dishes. Is this all free? Everything is different in rich schools. She took the tongs and said that they need to inspect everything here, right? The MC said that she can begin. She, collecting food on a plate, said, fully automated and a perfectly balanced menu. Her ideal cafeteria, this, the one she dreamed of, was here all along. They needed the same thing at school. The protagonist scratched his head and thought, is this new student council president some kind of eccentric? Well, he'll mind his own business. He noticed the voices, one of which said, as usual, he has something he's not worthy of. Mitsurugi Ibuki stood in front of the bullies and asked them to stop. Kinzo Kanetoru held his sword in his hands and looking at it, shouted, seriously, this will turn into trash in his hands. His comrade noticed, the blade is very sharp. Ibuki asked him to give it back, but he shouted that he should shut up. This is his punishment for sitting in the Raito faction's seats without permission. The protagonist thought, he knew it. Well, no matter how elite the school is, there will always be such scum, and the teachers can't keep track of them all. School cafeterias are one of the most common places for bullying. He was lucky that he encountered them so quickly. He'll finish quickly. Kanetoru said that anyone with a rank below 2 digits is not allowed to go to the cafeteria. Didn't he know? Ibuki awkwardly replied, it doesn't matter where you sit in the cafeteria. Before he could finish speaking, a bully grabbed him by the clothes and shouted, of course it matters. After that, he threw him to the floor, and the protagonist closed his eyes and thought, well, maybe it's time to intervene. Kanetoru, looking at Ibuki, grinned. He clearly had no use for such a sword, so he'll keep it for himself. And his comrade added, great, they'll be able to sell it for a higher price. Another bully said, the Raito faction's budget will skyrocket. After that, Kanetoru waved his hand and said that he was free. Ibuki extended his hand to him and shouted, he must give it back quickly. This sword was given to him by his father. He said, God. Then he clenched his fist and swung it, shouting, he doesn't care about his family. Ibuki cringed in fear, then looked forward in surprise and asked, what? The protagonist grabbed the bully's fist, and he, frowning, shouted, who the hell is he? He thought he stopped him with one hand. The protagonist explained, an exchange student from Nakano High, he is looking for a student who ranks first in the top. Can he tell him? He was indignant. What? Why would he tell him anything? Before he could finish speaking, MC squeezed his hand tighter, and he, screaming in pain, sank to his knees. The protagonist repeated, he just has to answer him, asking an emotional person is the fastest way to find out something. The bullies shouted, what was that? Hey, freak, what did he do? The protagonist said that he would repeat, where can he find the one who ranks first in the top? At that moment, the protagonist heard enough. He jumped back sharply and thought, what was that? Like an invisible sword. A student of Azabu High, the leader of the Raito faction, Raito Nobunaga, approached them and told him not to bully his brothers. Raito Nobunaga, a third year, the third place among the swordsmen of Azabu High, is the head of the Kishin-style swordsmanship school and the head of the Raito faction. Although the administration does not know what to do with his bad behavior, his true skills are close to the first place in the rank. He is a candidate for a teaching position after graduation. Is this person really in such a situation with an exchange student now? Looking at his subordinate, he asked, how did this even happen? MC pointed his finger at Ibuki and explained that his brother was bullying the guy. He just stopped him. Nobunaga looked at the bullies with a frown and asked if that was true. They replied that it wasn't. He was lying. They just wanted to take the seats for the faction. He walked forward and punched one of them in the face. Then they were already lying on the floor, and he said that he could see in his eyes when he was lying. After that, he picked up the sword and, apologizing for the inconvenience, bowed. As the leader of the Raito faction, he offers his sincere apologies. The protagonist awkwardly waved his hand and said no need, it's okay. He then held out the sword to Ibuki and asked if that was his? He can have it. He took the sword in his hands and thanked him. The faction leader repeated that he was very sorry. MC wondered in surprise, could someone so honest and straightforward really be their leader? After that, Nobunaga stood up and said that he would really like to just apologize and go about his business. But does he know, in that case part of the faction will be destroyed, so he challenges him to a duel. Does he accept? Ibuki said that he had better refuse, he is in third place in the top, but the main character said, of course, he would gladly accept his challenge. Nobunaga, smiling, said, great. He is grateful, it will be easier this way. In that case, he will wait for him at the arena after school. Ibuki, approaching the protagonist, asked, will everything be okay? He is in third place, what is he doing? This is stupid. MC scratched the back of his head and replied that he is stupid. Is he okay with everything? He was surprised. What? He replied, these freaks will mock him all school. Ibuki said, if he does not answer them, they will get tired of it. The next second, the protagonist noticed the energy emanating from the sword and thought, really? Then he pointed his finger at him and told him to listen. He was asking the real him who was right here, what did he do when his sword was stolen? He was surprised, and MC added, even when he knew in his head that they were stronger, his body moved on its own, right? Then he should answer him. Is he really okay with this? He lowered his head and said that he didn't want this to continue. He wanted to get revenge on them. He clenched his fist and shouted, and he didn't want them to touch his sword again. The protagonist extended his hand to him and smiled and said, okay, he said it well, what's his name? They shook hands and introduced themselves. After that, the protagonist said that he was going. He also needed to challenge someone to a duel. The guy who took his sword. He put his hand on his shoulder and added, he shouldn't worry, he would make sure that he won. He suggested that they enjoy the taste of victory together. Ibuki replied that he understood. At that moment, the main character received a notification on his phone. Yuzuki wrote, where did he go? He replied that he was still eating. After school in the waiting room, Yuzuki, pointing her finger at the main character, shouted, he must wait. An exchange student is dueling on the first day. What is he even thinking, Haruto? He awkwardly put his hands in front of him and replied, long story short. She yelled, does he think she's okay with this? He replied, didn't the chairman himself tell them to try to get first place in the top? So he decided it would be faster to start with a duel with third place. She grabbed her head and said that she was shocked that he was saying this so easily, and he replied, get first place to fight that chairman, and go home right away, that's his plan. Ibuki yelled, does he really think he can do it? Then he sat down next to him and added, however, there's always a chance. If he can defeat the chairman, it will be his first time at Azabu High. He might even get the legendary skill cube. MC folded his arms and clarified, skill cube? He confirmed it. Kiryu Kagamitsu, the founder of the school, understood and mastered the secrets of the sword and placed it in the skill cube. The protagonist recalled the chairman's words about him learning the secrets of the Swiss school and asked, what is it? Ibuki thoughtfully placed his fingers on his chin and said, a unique sword skill that only the chairman could master, space slicing. The protagonist stood up from his seat and asked, space slicing? In other words, it can cut a dimension? Ibuki confirmed it. That's what they say. In fact, no one has ever seen it in real life. The protagonist thought, in that case, wouldn't it be able to save him? Another reason to win. He then clenched his fist and looked at it and said, okay, he's full of motivation, but first Ibuki, he'll be opening the show. In response, he nodded and said that he'll try his best. He laughed heartily at him after he challenged him to a duel. So, about his secret plan to ensure his victory. The protagonist said, that's right, he just has to do as he's told. If he listens, he'll definitely win. He extended his hand to him and said, Ibuki, he has to let him look at his sword. After a while, the students gathered in the arena were happily waiting for the duel. Kanetoru stood in front of Ibuki and pointed his sword at him and said, you idiot, challenge him to a duel. Where did he get the courage? He won't leave a single living spot on him. Yuzuki, who was sitting in the stands, turned to the protagonist and asked, is he really going to be okay? He confirmed it. There's nothing to worry about. He should be fine. And not long before that, he explained to Ibuki he has to listen. As soon as the duel starts, he should immediately turn his sword and deliver one precise blow without thinking. He was surprised. That's all? He nodded in response. His opponent would most likely bully him from the start, because he saw him as a small fry. If he controlled the situation, he would get scared and wouldn't be able to do anything, he thought. So they would use that against him. However, he couldn't miss. He couldn't close his eyes, he had to look ahead and just strike. That would be enough to win, he had to trust him. Ibuki replied, okay, he got it. He trusted him, Haruto. In the present, the protagonist watching the fight thought he had to hold on, Ibuki. He could definitely do it. The tension was building up, and the next second, the student shouted, forward. Mitsurugi Ibuki, swordsman, class 2F, rank 3424th place. His opponent said, okay, they will begin. Kinzo Kanetoru, swordsman, class 2A, rank 155th place. Then he added, after he wins, he will continue to be friends with him. Ibuki lowered his head and clenched his fist, saying, he understood. Then if suddenly victory is his, he should not bother him anymore. Idiot. He was indignant. Oh, he is an idiot. He has no lack of impudence. Ibuki stood in a stance and reached for the hilt of his sword. Kanetoru took out a second sword from the portal and shouted, forward. The protagonist said, really a technique of two swords? He is either very good or not. He is a complete idiot. The bully ran to attack, and Ibuki remembered the words of the protagonist and thought, as Haruto said, he rushed to attack as soon as the start of the duel was announced. Under no circumstances should he take his eyes off his opponent and must deliver one accurate blow. The next second, with a sharp movement, he pulled the sword from its sheath and swinging it, sent a powerful impulse of energy forward. Kanetoru shouted in confusion, what? He crossed his swords in front of him, trying to defend himself, and thought so fast he didn't even see. At that moment, a pulse of energy cut through his swords, and he flew into the wall at lightning speed. The audience looked at the arena in confusion, and the referee announced that Ibuki was the winner. Yuzuki, looking at the protagonist, happily said, he won. He confirmed that as he said, after all, his sword was magical. She was surprised, a magical sword? Then he looked at it with the eye of time and realized that this sword had a rare effect. Unlike him, Ibuki wielded magic, but all his magic was absorbed by this sword. In addition, The sword had a special feature. It released all the energy at once. Ibuki had been wearing this sword for 3 years, and he said that he had never fought yet. All the energy gathered in the sword was waiting to be released. It seems that for some reason they didn't tell him that he had a magic sword. In any case, a win is a win. After a while in the waiting room, Ibuki clenched his fists and shouted joyfully, "Haruto! He won! It's all thanks to him!" What's going on? Everything went so well. Ever since he appeared, he hasn't stopped being surprised. He smiled at the protagonist and said that it was all thanks to his own power. He thought that he would tell him about the sword another time when he had the time. Then he said, "Okay, now it's his turn." After a while, he stood in the arena opposite Nobunaga. He scratched the back of his head and said that he would allow him not to hold back. After all, the honor of the Raito faction is at stake. MC agreed with him and said that he would only be glad. After that, they took out their weapons and prepared for battle.